Have you ever felt it? A sense of weight that has no physical form. A burden you carry that no one else can see. It is like an invisible backpack. And with each passing day, each unresolved argument, each lingering regret, you place another stone inside. A small stone of worry about tomorrow. A heavy rock of a memory from years ago. The sharp pebble of a harsh word you wish you could take back. Over time, the straps dig into your shoulders, and the weight becomes so familiar that you almost forget it's there, except for the exhaustion in your bones, the subtle slowness in your step, and the quiet ache that hums beneath the surface of your busy life. This isn't a personal failure. It is a profoundly human condition, amplified by the world we now inhabit. We live in an age of constant connection, yet feel a deep undercurrent of loneliness. We scroll through endless feeds of curated perfection and wonder why our own reality feels lacking. We are busier than any generation before us, yet we rarely feel truly present, truly alive. The source of this weight, this paralysis, is not the world outside. It is the grip of our own mind. We are bound by invisible threads, woven from our own clinging. We cling to what was, replaying old hurts and lost joys, hoping to somehow change a past that is already written. We cling to what might be, rehearsing for a future that has not yet arrived, trying to control every outcome and eliminate every uncertainty. And in doing so, we miss the only moment we ever truly have, which is right now. This constant pulling, this resistance to the flow of life, is the very definition of suffering. It is the friction between our desires and reality. But what if there was a way to loosen that grip? What if you could learn to gently set the backpack down, stone by stone? For over 2,500 years, there has existed a path, a gentle science of the mind dedicated to this very process. It is not a dogma you must believe, but a set of tools you can use, a map for an inner journey. Buddhist wisdom offers a timeless technology for understanding the patterns of your own heart and mind, not to judge them, not to fight them, but to liberate them. It suggests that the freedom you seek is not in changing your circumstances, but in changing your relationship to them. This journey does not ask you to become someone new. It invites you to uncover the peace that already exists within you, buried beneath the weight of all that you are carrying. Together, let us explore this path and learn not just to see the burdens we hold, but to finally and gracefully let them go. To begin any journey of healing, we must first have the courage to make an honest diagnosis. We cannot mend what we refuse to see. We cannot find our way out of a maze if we pretend we are not lost. In the Buddhist tradition, this first, courageous step is known as acknowledging the truth of dukkha. The word is from the ancient Pali language, and it is often translated simply as suffering. But this single English word is too small, too narrow, to hold the depth of what it truly means. It can evoke images of tragedy and despair, and lead one to believe that this path is a pessimistic one. But that is a profound misunderstanding. To understand dukkha is not to become sad. It is to become sober. It is to look at the human condition with clear, compassionate eyes, and to finally name the subtle disquiet that haunts even our most joyful moments. Dukkha is not just the loud cry of anguish. It is also the quiet, persistent whisper that something is not quite right, that something is fundamentally out of balance. To truly begin our journey of letting go, We must first understand the many faces of the weight we carry. The Buddha described dukkha in 3 distinct, yet interwoven, layers. The first is the most obvious, the one we all know intimately. It is called dukkha, which means the suffering of suffering, or the pain of pain. This is the raw, undeniable pain of life. It is the headache that throbs in your temples, the chronic illness that limits your body, the sharp pang of hunger. It is also the emotional pain that can feel even more searing than the physical. It is the grief that hollows you out when you lose someone you love, the sting of betrayal from a trusted friend, the humiliation of being rejected, the anxiety that tightens your chest in the dead of night. This form of dukkha needs little explanation. It is the world's sharp edges, the unavoidable friction of being alive in a body and a mind that can be hurt. We spend most of our lives devising elaborate strategies to avoid this kind of pain, to shield ourselves from it, to numb ourselves to its presence. Yet, it always finds a way in, because it is an inseparable part of the fabric of existence. The second layer of dukkha is more subtle, more pervasive, and often more perplexing. It is called viparinama dukkha, the suffering of change. This is the pain that is woven into the very heart of pleasure. It is the anxiety that lurks beneath our happiness. Think of the most beautiful sunset you have ever seen, the sky ablaze with impossible colors. In that moment of awe, isn't there a tiny, quiet part of your mind that knows it is fleeting? That same beauty carries within it the seed of its own disappearance. This is the suffering of change. You get the promotion you've worked so hard for, and for a while there is euphoria, but soon it is followed by the pressure to succeed in the new role, the fear of losing it. You fall in love, and in the midst of that profound connection, there is the subtle, unspoken fear that it might one day end. The joy of watching your children grow is tinged with the melancholy of knowing that the sweet moments of their childhood are passing, never to return. This dukkha arises because we try to grasp onto things that are, by their very nature, like water flowing through our fingers. We seek permanence in an impermanent world. We want our joy to be a fixed point, a solid foundation. But life is a river, constantly moving. Our resistance to this flow, our attachment to the way things are right now, is the source of this deep, underlying dissatisfaction. Even when life is good, we suffer because we know it will change. The third and most profound layer is called sankhara dukkha. This is the suffering of conditioned existence. It is the most difficult to see because it is the very water we swim in. It is the baseline hum of unsatisfactoriness that is part of being a self in the world. It is a fundamental stress that comes from the fact that we, and everything around us, are composite, temporary, and dependent on countless other factors. It's that feeling of, is this all there is? It's the restlessness that makes you pick up your phone for the 100th time in a day, seeking a distraction you can't name. It is the burden of having to maintain an identity, a personality, an ego. We spend our entire lives constructing and defending this idea of me, my opinions, my possessions, my reputation, my story. This project of the self is exhausting. It requires constant vigilance, constant comparaison, constant striving. Sankhara dukkha is the inherent instability of this entire enterprise. It is the background anxiety that comes from being in a contingent world. It's not about a specific pain or a specific loss, but about the very nature of our conditioned reality. It is the ultimate weight in our invisible backpack, the one we are often least aware of, yet the one that makes everything else feel heavier. To see these truths clearly is not to surrender to them, but to begin to work with them wisely. And the most powerful tool for this is recognizing the difference between pain and suffering. The Buddha told a story of two arrows. When you are out walking, you might be struck by an arrow. This first arrow is painful. It is the dukkha of life, an illness, a loss, an accident. This first arrow is, to a large extent, unavoidable. Life will include moments of pain, but then we often inflict a second arrow upon ourselves. After the first arrow of pain strikes, we say, "Why me? This is terrible. I can't stand this. This shouldn't have happened." We become consumed by anger, self-pity, and resistance. This reaction, this mental commentary, is the second arrow. It is entirely self-inflicted, and this second arrow is not pain. It is suffering. The first arrow is the unfortunate reality of life. The second arrow is our relationship to that reality. The entire path of letting go is not about learning to dodge all the first arrows, for that is impossible. It is about learning not to shoot the second arrow. It is about learning to be with the pain without adding the layer of suffering. There is a story that illustrates this journey of recognition with heartbreaking beauty. It is the story of a woman named Kisa Gautami. She lived a happy life until her young son, her only child, fell ill and died, consumed by a grief so powerful it bordered on madness. She refused to accept his death. She clutched his small, lifeless body and went from house to house, from neighbor to neighbor, begging for a medicine that could bring him back. Some pitied her, some mocked her, some simply shut their doors. Finally, a wise man saw her desperation and, instead of dismissing her, showed her a path. He told her, "I do not have the medicine you seek, but I know someone who does. Go to the Buddha." Kisa Gautami ran to the Buddha, laid her child at his feet, and pleaded for the miracle cure. The Buddha looked at her with infinite compassion and said, "There is only one way to heal your son. You must bring me back a single mustard seed, but it must be taken from a house where no one has ever lost a child, a parent, a spouse, or a friend, filled with a desperate hope." Kisa Gautami began her quest. At the first house, she asked for the mustard seed. The woman of the house was happy to give it to her. But when Kisa Gautami asked if anyone in this home had ever died, the woman's face fell. "Oh, lady," she said, "the living are few, but the dead are many. Do not remind me of my greatest grief. We lost our father just last year." Kisa Gautami left, her heart heavy, and went to the next house. The story was the same. A husband lost, a beloved daughter taken by fever, a brother lost in an accident. She went from house to house, through the entire village, and the answer was always the same. In every home, there was a story of loss. In every family, there was an empty chair at the table. As the sun began to set, Kisa Gautami sat by the side of the road, the village lights flickering on one by one. She watched them, and then she watched them flicker out. In that moment, a profound understanding dawned in her heart. She realized her sorrow was not hers alone. The pain of loss was not a unique curse visited upon her, but the shared, universal inheritance of all human beings. Her grief was the grief of the world. With this realization, her frantic clinging to her personal story dissolved. She understood the nature of life, its fragility, its impermanence. She gently carried her son to the cremation grounds and let him go. She had not found the magical mustard seed she was looking for, but she had found something far more precious, the wisdom that comes from seeing the truth of dukkha, not as a personal tragedy, but as a universal reality. To acknowledge suffering, askisagotamidit, is the end of isolation and the beginning of compassion. It is the moment we stop asking, "Why me?" and begin to see that we are all in this together. It is a brave and necessary act of turning toward reality, not away from it. It is the first, essential step to setting down the stones in our backpack. For once we have truly seen and understood the nature of the weight we carry, we can finally ask the most important question of all: where does it come from? And that is the next step on our journey. After walking through the village with Kisa Gotami, after having the courage to look upon the truth of dukkha, we arrive at a critical juncture, a diagnosis. No matter how accurate, is incomplete without an understanding of the cause. To simply acknowledge the existence of the weight in our backpack is a brave start, but it does not tell us why we continue to place stones inside. If we only ever treat the symptoms of our disease, the anxiety, the sadness, the stress, without addressing the root illness, we are condemned to a lifetime of temporary fixes. The Buddha, as a master physician of the mind, did not stop at the diagnosis. He pointed directly to the origin, the very source from which all our secondary suffering springs. This is the second noble truth, the truth of samudaya, the origin of dukkha, and at its heart is a single, powerful, and deeply resonant word: tanha. Tanha is most often translated as craving, but its essence is better captured by the word thirst. It is not a gentle wish or a mild preference. It is a deep, primal, and relentless thirst. It's the desperate thirst of someone lost in the desert, a force that can override all rational thought. This is the engine of our discontent. This thirst, this craving, is the force that takes the unavoidable pain of the first arrow and motivates us to shoot the second arrow of suffering into ourselves. It is the internal mechanism that generates layer upon layer of anger, jealousy, obsession, and anxiety on top of the simple, clean reality of the present moment. This thirst is not a monolithic force. It manifests in three distinct ways, flowing through every aspect of our lives, often unseen, yet always shaping our experience. The first and most familiar form is kama tanha, the thirst for sense pleasures. This is the craving for our five senses to be stimulated in pleasant ways. We want to see beautiful things, hear pleasant sounds, taste delicious foods, smell fragrant aromas, and feel comfortable textures. In our modern world, this form of thirst has been weaponized. The entire advertising industry is built upon generating and promising to satisfy kama tanha. It's the craving that makes you reach for your phone to see a new like, a new message, a new image. Each notification is a small promise of a pleasant sensation for the mind. It's the thirst for the next episode in a series, the next level in a game, the next item in your online shopping cart. It is the relentless pursuit of the next hit of pleasure. The problem is not the pleasure itself, but the thirst behind it. The pleasure is always temporary. The delicious meal ends. The beautiful song is over. The high from the purchase fades. And because the pleasure is fleeting, the thirst that drove us to it remains unquenched. The moment one pleasure recedes, the thirst immediately begins its search for the next, creating a perpetual cycle of seeking and fleeting satisfaction, followed by a renewed sense of lack. We become like ghosts with hungry mouths and tiny throats, always consuming but never feeling full. The second form of this thirst is more subtle and psychological. It is bhavatanha, the thirst for becoming, the craving for existence. This is the deep-seated desire to be someone, to have a solid, lasting, and admirable identity. It's the voice in our head that says, "I will be happy when I am successful," or when I am thinner, or when I am in a perfect relationship, or when I am seen as intelligent and wise. It is the engine of our ambition, but also the source of our deepest insecurities. We cling to roles: the good parent, the dedicated employee, the loyal friend, and feel immense anxiety when those roles are threatened. We curate our lives on social media, presenting an idealized version of ourselves, craving for that version to be seen and validated as our true existence. This is the thirst to create a permanent self in an impermanent world. We want to build a monument to me, something solid and unchanging. But life, by its very nature, is a process of constant change. We are not nouns, we are verbs. This craving to solidify our identity is a direct struggle against the nature of reality, and it is an exhausting, impossible battle that guarantees a state of underlying tension and fear. The third form of thirst seems, at first, to be the opposite of the second, but it springs from the same root of dissatisfaction. It is vibhavatanya, the thirst for non-existence or annihilation. This is the powerful urge to get away from something unpleasant. When faced with pain, whether physical or emotional, this thirst screams, "I don't want this, make it stop." It is the craving for oblivion, the desperate wish not to feel what we are feeling. In its most common form, this is the engine of distraction and escapism. It's the urge to lose yourself in hours of television to avoid feeling lonely. It's the impulse to drink or use drugs to numb the pain of a difficult memory. It's the constant busyness we create in our lives to avoid sitting quietly with our own minds. Procrastination is a form of vibhavatanya, a desperate push against the discomfort of a challenging task. At its most extreme, this thirst for non-existence is the despair that can lead to thoughts of self-harm. It is a violent rejection of the present moment. Just as we desperately chase pleasure, we desperately run from pain. Both actions are driven by thirst, and both actions bind us to a reactive, unfree way of living. Perhaps the most tragic and confusing manifestation of this clinging is our tendency to cling to our own suffering. It seems paradoxical. Why would anyone cling to pain? But our stories of victimhood, our grievances, our anger, can become central pillars of our identity. The story of what they did to me can provide a strange sense of comfort and righteousness. It gives us a solid sense of self, a clear narrative in a confusing world. To be the one who was wronged is a powerful, if painful, identity. Letting go of that anger can feel like we are letting the person who hurt us win, that we are invalidating our own pain. it can feel like we are letting go of a part of ourselves. We hold onto the stone of resentment because its familiar weight is, in a strange way, reassuring. In these moments, we are choosing the known misery of our story over the unknown freedom of letting it go. This is Tana in its most self-destructive form, where we willingly perpetuate our own imprisonment because the bars of the cage have become a part of our identity. There is a simple and powerful parable that captures this self-imprisoning nature of tanha. In some parts of Asia, a method for trapping monkeys involves a coconut. A trapper will take a coconut, secure it to the ground, and drill a hole in it just large enough for a monkey's open hand to pass through. Inside, they place a handful of rice or some other treat. Sooner or later, a monkey, driven by its insatiable curiosity and craving, will come along. It will smell the treat inside and slip its slender hand through the hole. It will grasp the rice, closing its fingers into a tight fist. But now, it is trapped. The hole that was large enough for an open hand is too small for a clenched fist. The monkey will pull and shriek. It will thrash and struggle, growing more and more frantic. It is utterly convinced that the coconut is holding it prisoner, but it is not the coconut that traps it. It is its own fist. The solution is breathtakingly simple. Just open the hand, let go of the rice, and it will be free. But its craving, its tanha, is so overpowering, its attachment to the prize so absolute, that it cannot bring itself to let go. And so it remains, a prisoner of its own desire, until the trapper returns. We are that monkey. The rice is anything we cling to: a belief, a relationship, a material possession, our past injury, a future hope, an idea of who we are. The clenched fist is our mind. Tightened by the force of tanha, we struggle and pull against reality, blaming our circumstances, or past, or other people for our unhappiness, all the while unaware that the trap is not external. The trap is our own clinging. We are held captive by our refusal to simply open our hand. Seeing this, truly seeing this, changes everything. It shifts the focus of our efforts from changing the world outside to liberating our mind within. If the root cause of all our suffering is the clenched fist of craving, then the path to freedom, the path to setting the backpack down, must be found in the gentle, courageous, and profound act of letting go. It lies in the discovery that it is possible to stop the thirst, and this very possibility is the promise of the next great truth on our journey. We left ourselves with the image of the monkey, its fist clenched around a handful of rice, a prisoner not of the coconut trap, but of its own desperate craving. It is a bleak picture, one of utter futility. If we stopped there, this path would be one of despair, a mere catalogue of our own self-inflicted wounds. But the teachings of the Buddha are not a tragedy. They are a story of liberation. The diagnosis of the illness and the identification of its cause are followed by the most crucial part of any healing journey, the prognosis. And the prognosis is one of profound, life-altering hope. This is the third noble truth, the truth of Nirodha. The word means cessation, ending, release. It is the radical, beautiful, and absolute statement that there is a way out. The thirst, the tanha that drives us, can be quenched. The clenched fist can be opened, and when the thirst ceases, the suffering that flows from it also ceases. This is not a wish or a prayer. It is presented as a fundamental law of the mind, just as fire ceases when its fuel is removed. Suffering ceases when its fuel of craving is exhausted. This state of cessation, of ultimate freedom and peace, is known by a more famous name, nirvana, for many in the Western world. This word is weighed down with all sorts of fantastical and misleading ideas. We imagine it as a kind of hazy, cloud-filled heaven, a paradise one goes to after death as a reward for a virtuous life. Or perhaps we see it as a complete annihilation of the self, a blissful dissolving into a cosmic void. But nirvana is something far more practical, immediate, and profound than any of these concepts. The literal meaning of the word is to extinguish or to blow out, like blowing out a candle flame. The question, then, is what is being extinguished? The answer is simple and direct: the three fires that fuel all our suffering. The fire of greed and craving, the fire of hatred and aversion, and the fire of delusion and ignorance. Nirvana is not a place you go to. It is a state you realize. It is the natural state of a mind that is no longer at war with itself. Imagine a mind not constantly pushed and pulled by the need for more, the fear of loss, the anger at injustice. Imagine experiencing life directly, without the constant, chattering filter of judgment, désir, and resistance. That is the peace of nirvana. It is not an emotionless void. On the contrary, it allows for a depth of feeling of love, of joy, pause of compassion that is impossible when our hearts are clouded by the smoke of our own clinging. It is the supreme mental health that is available to us when we stop adding the second arrow. It can be touched in small moments, right here and now, in a moment of genuine, selfless connection with another person, in a moment of complete absorption in a piece of music or the beauty of nature, in a moment of quiet meditation, when the frantic thoughts subside and there is just the simple, peaceful rhythm of the breath. These moments are glimpses of nirvana, proof that a mind free from the tyranny of thirst is not a distant dream, but an achievable reality. This leads to one of the most common and critical misunderstandings on this path: hearing of cessation and letting go. Many people fear that the goal is to become a kind of unfeeling zombie, a passionless and detached observer who simply doesn't care about anything anymore. This could not be further from the truth. Letting go is not the same as suppression, pushing down our anger, pretending we are not hurt, swallowing our sadness. This is a violent act. It is a manifestation of vibhava tanha, the craving for non-existence, the desire not to feel. This act of suppression doesn't extinguish the fire, it only buries the embers, where they smolder under the surface, creating pressure and illness, waiting to erupt later with even greater force. Letting go is the opposite of suppression. It is the act of allowing our feelings to be exactly what they are, to arise, to be felt with mindful attention, and to pass away without our clinging to them or acting them out. Furthermore, letting go is not indifference or apathy. It is not about ceasing to care. In fact, it allows us to care more deeply and effectively. Think of a surgeon whose hands tremble with anxiety for her patient, whose fear of failure clouds her judgment. She is attached. Her caring, while well-intentioned, is compromised by her own emotional turmoil. Now imagine another surgeon. She feels profound compassion for her patient, a deep desire to heal them, but her mind is calm. Her hands are steady. Her focus is absolute. She cares deeply, but she is not attached to the outcome in a way that cripples her. She does her absolute best, and she can accept the result, whatever it may be, with equanimity. This is the essence of letting go. It is liberating the vast reserves of energy we waste on worrying, resisting, ruminating, and clinging, and making that energy available for wise, loving, and compassionate action in the world. It is the source of true strength, not weakness. It allows you to love more fully, because you are not constantly afraid of the pain of loss. It allows you to work more creatively, because you are not paralyzed by the fear of failure. It is the ultimate engagement with life, on life's own terms. There is a simple metaphor that beautifully illustrates this principle. Imagine you have spent your entire life inside a pitch-black room. You believe that darkness is the fundamental nature of reality. You might spend your years fighting it, shouting into the void, trying to push the darkness out with your hands, flailing against something that has no substance. This is our normal struggle with suffering, a futile and exhausting battle against a phantom. Now, imagine someone comes to the door and doesn't join you in your fight, but simply suggests, "Why don't you light a candle?" You protest, saying that you must first get rid of all this darkness. But they insist. You light a single, small candle, and in that instant, the room is filled with a soft light. The question is, where did the darkness go? Did you fight it? Did you push it out? No, it didn't go anywhere, because it was never really there to begin with. The darkness was not a thing in itself. It was simply the absence of light. The moment light was introduced, the darkness ceased to be. In this story, the darkness is dukkha. Our suffering, our struggle against it is our usual, ineffective pattern of resistance. The candle is wisdom, the clear seeing of reality as it is. The light is the state of non-clinging, of a mind free from tanha. We do not need to wage a heroic war against our suffering. We simply need to introduce the light by cultivating awareness, by understanding the nature of our clinging, by nurturing compassion. We light the candle in the dark room of our own mind, and the suffering, which is rooted in the darkness of our ignorance and craving, naturally, effortlessly, ceases to be. This points to the most radical promise of the third noble truth, that true happiness is unconditional. Most of us live our lives in pursuit of conditional happiness. We tell ourselves, "I will be happy when I get the job, when I find a partner, when I lose the weight, when my children are successful." Our happiness is always dependent on an external condition, a reason, but since all conditions are impermanent, this kind of happiness is inherently fragile and fleeting. It is building our house on shifting sand. Nirodha, the cessation of suffering, reveals a different kind of happiness altogether. It is the peace that is the default state of the mind when it is no longer agitated by the winds of thirst. It is a happiness that doesn't need a reason. It is not a happiness because of something. It simply is. It is the deep well of contentment that is always present underneath the turbulent surface of our thoughts and emotions. This is the freedom that Kisa Gotami touched when she finally accepted the nature of life. It is the freedom the monkey could find by simply unclenching its fist. This freedom is not a myth. It is our birthright. We have seen the diagnosis. We have identified the cause. And now we hold the undeniable truth that a cure exists. The journey is no longer a question of if, but only a question of how. What, then, is the prescription? What is the path we must walk to bring this light into our own lives? That is the final, great truth we are now ready to explore. We have arrived at a place of profound hope. We have faced the diagnosis of Dukkha. We have identified its cause in the relentless thirst of Tana. And we have been given the beautiful prognosis of Nirodha, the truth that this thirst can be quenched and that a peace beyond our imagining is possible. A common response to hearing such a promise is a mixture of inspiration and skepticism. It sounds wonderful, but how? How do we, in our messy, complicated, modern lives, actually begin to untie these ancient knots of suffering? How do we light that candle in the darkness of our own minds? The Buddha did not leave his followers with a beautiful theory and no instructions. The promise is followed by the prescription. This is the fourth noble truth. The truth of the Magga. The path. It is a complete, practical, and deeply compassionate guide to living a life that leads directly to the cessation of suffering. This guide is known as the Noble Eightfold Path. Before we explore its parts, it is crucial to understand its character. This is not a list of rigid commandments to be followed out of fear, nor is it a linear sequence of steps where you must perfect one before moving to the next. It is a holistic design for human flourishing, where each part supports and deepens all the others. Like the interwoven strands of a magnificent tapestry, it is called the Middle Way, a name that comes directly from the Buddha's own life story. He had experienced the two extremes of human seeking. As a young prince, he lived a life of extreme sensual indulgence, shielded from all forms of suffering. With every possible pleasure at his fingertips, he found this life to be hollow, a gilded cage that could not touch the deep, underlying reality of dissatisfaction. So he left the palace and became an ascetic. Pursuing the other extreme, he engaged in severe self-mortification, fasting until his ribs showed, holding his breath until his head felt like it would split, pushing his body to the absolute brink of death. He found that this extreme also failed. A mind in a body weakened by pain could not find clarity. It could only find more agitation. The Great Awakening came when he realized that the path to freedom lay between these two extremes. It was a middle way, a path of balance and wisdom. It avoids the heedless pursuit of pleasure, which only fuels the fire of craving, and it avoids the pointless self-punishment that weakens the body and mind. It is a path of living intelligently, of nurturing our well-being so that our minds can become clear, stable, and insightful. To make this path easier to understand, its 8 factors are often grouped into 3 essential pillars of training. First is sila, or ethical conduct. Second is samadhi, or mental discipline. And third is panya, or wisdom. These 3 are not separate, but work together in a beautiful synergy. Ethical conduct in our daily lives calms the mind, removing the agitation of guilt and remorse. A calm mind is the necessary ground for developing focus and mental discipline, and a disciplined, focused mind is the instrument needed to cultivate the penetrating wisdom that finally liberates us. Let us begin with the pillar of wisdom, or panya, which illuminates the entire path. It consists of the first 2 factors. The first is right view. This is not about adopting a new set of beliefs or dogmas. It is about striving to see the world as it truly is, not as we wish it were. It is the correct map for our journey. Right view means seeing the reality of the Four Noble Truths, in our own experience, seeing suffering, its cause in craving, impossible cessation, and the path that leads to that cessation. It is the understanding of impermanence, that all things are in flux, and it is the understanding of karma, the simple law of cause and effect applied to our actions, that wholesome actions lead to happiness and unwholesome actions lead to suffering. Without right view, we are walking in the dark, guided by delusion, and all our efforts will be misplaced. The second factor of wisdom is right intention, sometimes translated as right resolve. If right view is the map, right intention is the compass, the direction we orient our heart. It means consciously examining our motivation. Are our thoughts, words, and actions fueled by the fires of greed, hatred, and delusion? Or are they guided by the compass of letting go, of loving kindness, and of compassion? It is the intention to renounce our clinging, to extend goodwill to all beings, including ourselves, and to cause no harm. It is the conscious choice, made over and over again, to align our inner world with the path of healing. With this wisdom as our guide, we move to the pillar of sila, ethical conduct, which is how we manifest this wisdom in our interactions with the world. This pillar includes 3 factors. The third on the path is right speech. This is the recognition that our words have immense power, the power to heal or to harm. Right speech means abstaining from lying, from divisive speech that sets people against each other, from harsh or abusive language, and from idle chatter that clutters the mind. It means cultivating speech that is truthful, kind, helpful, and timely. In our age of social media, where words can be spread instantly and anonymously, the practice of right speech has never been more vital. It asks us to pause before we speak or type. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? The fourth factor is right action. This is the practice of living a life of harmlessness. It is based on the deep, empathetic recognition that all beings, just like us, want to be happy and avoid suffering. At its most basic, this means refraining from killing or causing physical harm, refraining from stealing or taking what is not freely given, and refraining from sexual misconduct that causes harm to ourselves or others. It is about cultivating a fundamental respect for the lives and well-being of everyone we share this planet with. The fifth factor is right livelihood. This is the application of ethical principles to the way we earn our living. It is a call to participate in the world of work in a way that is not harmful. This means avoiding professions that are built on exploitation, violence, or deceit. Traditionally, this included work in the trading of weapons, human beings, meat, intoxicants, hors poison. In a modern context, it invites us to examine our work life. Does it contribute to the well-being of the world? Or does it cause harm? Does it align with our deepest values? It is about finding a way to sustain ourselves that also sustains our integrity and peace of mind. The third pillar, the heart of the inner work, is samadhi, or mental discipline. This is where we directly train the mind. It consists of the final 3 factors. The sixth is right effort. This is not a joyless, grim struggle, but rather the joyful energy of a gardener. It is the active and conscious effort to cultivate what is good in our minds and to let go of what is not. It has 4 aspects: the effort to prevent unwholesome thoughts from arising, the effort to abandon unwholesome thoughts that have already arisen, the effort to cultivate wholesome thoughts that have not yet arisen, and the effort to maintain and perfect the wholesome thoughts that are already present. It is the steady, patient work of tending the garden of the mind. The 7th factor is right mindfulness. This is the linchpin of the entire path, the faculty that makes all the other factors possible. Right mindfulness is the capacity to be fully present and aware, right here, right now, without judgment. It is the practice of paying bare attention to the unfolding of our experience, to the sensations in our body, to the arising and passing of feelings, to the flow of thoughts, and to the nature of reality itself. It is the anchor that brings our wandering mind back from the past and the future to the only place where life is actually happening, the present moment. We will explore this vital practice in much greater depth, for it is the heart of our journey. Finally, the 8th factor is right concentration. As mindfulness keeps our attention in the present, right concentration is the ability to unify the mind and hold it steady on a single object. If mindfulness is the light, concentration is the magnifying glass that focuses that light into a powerful beam. This focused attention leads to deep states of inner calm, clarity, and stillness, known as jhana. In these states, the usual mental chatter subsides, and the mind becomes a powerful and precise instrument for seeing into its own nature. This is the Noble Eightfold Path. It is a path of exquisite balance. A story is told of the Buddha speaking to a monk named Sona, who was practicing with such fierce, aggressive effort that he was becoming discouraged and was thinking of quitting. The Buddha, knowing Sona had been a musician before becoming a monk, asked him, "Sona, when you played the lute, if the strings were too tight, could you produce beautiful music?" Sona replied, "No, venerable sir." "And if the strings were too loose, could you produce beautiful music?" "No, venerable sir." "But if the strings were not too tight and not too loose, tuned to an even pitch, could you then produce beautiful music?" "Yes, venerable sir." The Buddha then said, "In the same way, Sona, energy that is too strenuous leads to restlessness, and energy that is too slack leads to laziness. Therefore, cultivate a balance of energy and aim for a balance of your faculties. Our practice should be like that well-tuned string, not too tight, not too loose. This is the spirit of the middle way, a journey of gentle persistence and wise balance. This path is a complete design for living, a curriculum for awakening. But as we stand at its beginning, we must ask where to place our first step. While all 8 factors are essential, one of them, right mindfulness, is the heart that pumps life into all the others. It is the foundational skill upon which the entire structure of liberation is built. To truly understand this path, we must first understand the art and practice of bringing our minds home. And so, our next step is to explore this vital question: what, truly, is mindfulness? We have been given the map for our journey home, the beautiful and complete design of the Noble Eightfold Path. We have seen how its 3 pillars of ethical conduct, mental discipline, and wisdom work together to create a life of balance and clarity. But a map, no matter how perfect, is useless until we learn how to read it, until we learn how to locate our own position on its terrain. The skill that allows us to do this, the living heart that pumps blood through the veins of the entire path, is the seventh factor, right mindfulness, or in the Pali language, sammasati. Without mindfulness, right view is merely an intellectual concept, not a lived reality. Right speech is just a set of rules to follow mechanically, not an expression of present moment kindness. Right effort becomes a joyless struggle driven by willpower alone. Mindfulness is the essential ingredient, the illuminating awareness that makes the entire path come alive. It is the master key that unlocks every other door. So what is it? Truly, the word mindfulness has become so popular that its meaning has often been diluted. We hear about mindful eating, mindful leadership, mindful consumerism, but at its core, it is a profound human capacity that can be cultivated through dedicated practice. The most useful and accessible definition comes from the teacher Jon Kabat-Zinn, who describes mindfulness as paying attention on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. This definition is a complete set of instructions in itself, and each part is essential. First, we pay attention on purpose. This means mindfulness is not a passive, dreamy state. It is an active and deliberate choice. In our default mode, our attention is constantly being hijacked. It is pulled here and there by a notification on our phone, a passing sound, a random memory, a worry about the future. We are often not the masters of our own attention. We are slaves to its whims. To practice mindfulness is to begin to reclaim our own mind. It is the conscious, intentional act of deciding where our attention will rest. It is a declaration of sovereignty over our own inner world, choosing to place our focus where we want it, rather than letting it be scattered by the winds of distraction. Second, we pay attention in the present moment. Our minds are magnificent time-traveling machines with incredible speed. They can leap back 20 years to a painful regret, or jump forward 10 years into a fantasy of success or a nightmare of failure. This is their nature, but in doing so, we miss the only time we are ever actually alive right now. The past is a memory, a ghost. The future is a projection, a dream. Life itself, the raw, unfiltered experience of being, only ever happens in this present moment. Mindfulness is the training of gently but persistently bringing our awareness home to the here and now. It is the practice of arriving fully in our own life, moment by moment by moment. Third, and perhaps most challenging, we pay attention non-judgmentally. Our mind is a relentless commentator. It has an opinion about everything. The moment a sensation arises, we label it good, bad. I like this feeling. I hate this feeling. This thought is stupid. This thought is brilliant. This constant stream of judgment is the second arrow we shoot into ourselves. It adds a layer of reactive suffering on top of our direct experience. To be non-judgmental does not mean we become passive or lose our sense of discernment. It means we learn to observe our inner and outer world with the open, curious, and kind attitude of a scientist discovering a new phenomenon. We allow our thoughts, feelings, and sensations to arise and pass without needing to approve or disapprove of them. We simply note their presence. There is anger. There is the feeling of sadness. There is a thought of worry. This simple act of non-judgmental noticing creates a space of freedom between our experience and our reaction to it. In that space lies our power to choose a wiser response. This leads us to the greatest myth about mindfulness meditation, the idea that the goal is to empty the mind or to stop thinking. A beginner will sit down, close their eyes, and immediately become frustrated as they witness the chaotic whirlwind of their own thoughts. They think, "I can't do this. I'm failing. I can't stop my thoughts." This is like going to the gym, trying to lift a heavy weight once, failing, and declaring yourself a failure at exercise forever. The mind's job is to produce thoughts, just as the heart's job is to beat. You will never stop your thoughts, and the attempt to do so is a recipe for frustration. The practice is not about stopping thoughts. It is about changing your relationship to them. Imagine your awareness is the vast, open, boundless blue sky. Your thoughts, feelings, and sensations are the weather. Some days the sky is filled with dark, stormy clouds of anger or sadness. Some days it is filled with fluffy, white clouds of happiness. Some days it is clear and calm. But through it all, the sky itself remains unchanged, unyarmed, and spacious. We are not the weather, we are the sky. Mindfulness is the practice of learning to rest in our sky-like nature, allowing the clouds of thought and feeling to drift by without being swept away by them. We see the cloud of worry approaching. We acknowledge it, there is worry, and we let it pass, without having to climb aboard and fly off into a storm of anxiety. To accomplish this, we need an anchor. We need a calm, stable home base to which we can return when the winds of thought threaten to carry us away. The most powerful and accessible anchor we have is the breath. The breath is a remarkable tool. It is always with us. From the moment we are born to the moment we die, it is always happening in the present moment. You cannot breathe in the past or in the future, and it is a neutral sensation, a simple, physical process that bridges the mind and the body. To begin the practice, you simply find a comfortable posture, either sitting in a chair or on a cushion, with your back upright but not stiff. You can gently close your eyes, and then you bring your attention, on purpose, to the physical sensation of your own breathing. You don't need to change it or control it. Just feel it. You might feel the cool air entering your nostrils and the warm air leaving. You might feel the gentle rise and fall of your chest or your abdomen. Simply rest your awareness on these simple, humble sensations. Now, here is the most important instruction of all. Inevitably, your mind will wander. A thought will arise. A sound will distract you. A memory will pull you away. This is not a mistake. This is not a failure. This is simply what minds do. The practice is not about never wandering. The practice is the moment you realize you have wandered. In that moment of realizing, you have just woken up, and then, with the kindness you would show to a small puppy that has wandered off, you gently, patiently, and without any scolding, escort your attention back to the feeling of the breath. Again, and again, and again. Each time you do this, each time you wander, wake up, and gently return. You are strengthening the muscle of mindfulness. That moment of return is the sacred moment. It is the core of the entire practice. There is a classic image that describes this process perfectly. Imagine you have a glass jar filled with water and a thick layer of mud at the bottom. If you pick up the jar and shake it vigorously, the water becomes completely cloudy, murky, and opaque. You can't see through it at all. This is the mind in its ordinary, agitated state, churned up by endless thoughts, worries, and judgments. Now, what is the most effective way to make the water clear? You don't have to invent a complicated filter. You don't have to try and force the particles of mud out of the water. You do something far more simple and profound. You just set the jar down on a steady surface. You let it be still, and through the natural law of gravity, the sediment, the mud, all on its own, begins to settle. Slowly, gracefully, it drifts to the bottom, and the water reveals its own natural, inherent clarity. Mindfulness is the act of setting the jar down. The anchor of the breath is the steady surface upon which we rest the mind. By repeatedly returning our attention to this calm center, we stop the ceaseless agitation. We are not fighting the mud of our thoughts. We are simply creating the conditions for them to settle on their own. And in the clarity that emerges, we begin to see things as they really are. This is not some far-off mystical state. It is a practical skill, a way of coming home to ourselves, a way of finding the calm in the midst of the storm. And with this foundational tool of awareness now in our hands, we are ready to begin applying it. We start with the most concrete, tangible reality. We have our own physical body. We have discovered the anchor of the breath, that quiet, reliable friend that can bring our wandering mind back to the shores of the present moment. This is the first step in reclaiming our attention. Now, with this anchor in hand, we are ready to broaden our exploration. We are going to move our awareness from the single point of the breath to the vast, rich, and living landscape of our own body. For many, this might seem like a strange step. Why focus on the body? Isn't this a journey of the mind? But in the wisdom of this path, the mind and body are not two separate things. They are an inseparable unity, and the body is the most honest part of that union. Your mind can travel to 1,000 imaginary futures or 1,000 edited pasts, but your body is always, uncompromisingly, here. The feeling of your feet on the floor, the subtle pulse of blood in your fingertips, the simple weight of gravity. These things are happening now. The body cannot lie about what time it is. It is always now o'clock. To return to the body is to return to the present moment in the most direct and tangible way possible. Furthermore, our bodies are the silent keepers of our life stories. Every joy, every trauma, every moment of stress, and every moment of relaxation is stored in the patterns of our flesh and muscle. The tightness in your jaw might be the echo of unspoken anger. The tension in your shoulders might be the physical manifestation of the burdens you feel you are carrying. The butterflies in your stomach are the feeling of anxiety itself. We spend so much of our lives living from the neck up, lost in the world of thought, treating our bodies like taxis we use to haul our heads from one meeting to another. We become alienated from our own physical home, ignoring its signals until they become screams of pain or illness. The practice of body mindfulness is a radical act of homecoming. It is a way of saying to our body, after a lifetime of neglect or judgment, I am here now. I am ready to listen. So let us begin this practice of listening. This is not an exercise in striving or achieving. It is an invitation to rest and to feel. Find a position where you can be comfortable and undisturbed for a while, either sitting upright or, ideally for this practice, lying down on your back. Allow your arms to rest alongside your body, your feet to fall gently apart. There is nothing to do, nothing to fix. You are simply creating the space to be with your experience as it is. Gently close your eyes. Begin by bringing your awareness to the fact that you are breathing. Don't change the breath. Just notice it. Feel the abdomen gently rising with the in-breath and gently falling with the out-breath. Rest here for a few moments, allowing your body to soften and settle into the support of the floor or the chair beneath you. Now, bring your attention, like a soft, gentle spotlight, all the way down to your left foot. Narrow your focus to the toes of your left foot. See if you can feel the sensations present in your big toe, your second toe, the third, the fourth, and the little toe. You might feel a sense of warmth or coolness, a tingling, a pulsation, or the feeling of contact with a sock or the air. You might feel nothing at all, and that is perfectly fine. If there is an absence of sensation, simply be aware of that absence. There is no right or wrong way to feel. You are just noticing what is true for you in this moment. Now, allow your awareness to expand, to include the sole of the left foot, the ball of the foot, the arch, and the heel. Feel the points of contact and pressure where your heel rests against the surface beneath you. Be with these sensations. Without judgment, gently allow your awareness to move up into your left ankle, your lower leg, your shin and your calf muscle. Then, let the spotlight of attention illuminate your left knee, noticing any sensations on the surface or deep within the joint. Continue upward into the large muscles of your left thigh, the front and the back, just feeling, just noticing. Now, let go of the left leg and shift your attention all the way down to the toes of your right foot. And we begin again. Patiently, kindly, we explore the territory of the right toes, the sole of the right foot, the heel, the ankle. Notice any differences between the right and left side. Without judging them, just observing, your mind will wander. That is what it does. When you notice it has drifted off into thought or planning or memory, just gently acknowledge that, and then, with great kindness, escort your attention back to the part of the body you were exploring. The return is the practice. Now, move your awareness up the right lower leg, the knee, and the strong muscles of the right thigh. Feel the entirety of both of your legs, from the tips of your toes to your hips, feeling the weight, the temperature, the life that is present within them. Now, bring your awareness into the pelvic region, the hips, the buttocks, the groin. This is an area where we often hold a great deal of tension. Just allow your awareness to inhabit this region with a gentle, accepting quality. From here, let your attention expand into your lower back. So many of us carry stress here. Don't try to fix or change anything. Just notice the sensations that are present. Is there tightness? Is there warmth? Is there ease? Allow your awareness to sweep up your spine, vertebra by vertebra, through the middle back to your upper back and your shoulder blades, feeling their contact with the surface beneath you. Now, bring your awareness to your abdomen. Feel its gentle rise and fall with each breath. Be aware of the complex world of sensation within, the process of digestion, the subtle movements. Then, expand your awareness to your chest, feeling the movement of the breath here, and perhaps the gentle, steady beat of your heart within your rib cage. Now, bring your attention to your hands. Start with the left hand. Feel the thumb, the index finger, the middle finger, the ring finger, and the little finger. Notice the palm of your hand, the back of your hand. Feel the flow of energy that is present in your hands. Then, do the same with your right hand, exploring it with the same curious, gentle attention. Allow your awareness to flow up both arms, through the wrists, the forearms, the elbows, and the upper arms, all the way to your shoulders. Feel the weight and presence of your arms resting alongside your body. Now, bring your attention to your neck and throat, another common place for tension. Soften into this area. Let your awareness flow up into your face. Notice your jaw. See if you can release any clenching you might find there. Feel your lips, your mouth, your tongue. Be aware of your cheeks, your nose, the feeling of air in your nostrils. Bring a soft awareness to your eyes, resting in their sockets. Feel your forehead, and see if you can allow it to be smooth and free of tension. Finally, let your awareness rest on the very top of your head. And now, for a few moments, see if you can be aware of the entire body, from the tips of your toes to the top of your head, as one single, unified field of sensation. Breathing in, feel the whole body. Breathing out, feel the whole body. Just resting here, in this state of embodied presence. This practice, repeated over time, is a profound act of reconciliation in a world that constantly tells us our bodies are not good enough, that they are something to be disciplined, controlled, and judged. This practice offers a radically different message. It is a message of unconditional friendship. You are listening to your body with the same kindness you would offer to a dear friend. You are not demanding that it be different. You are not criticizing its aches or its appearance. You are simply offering it the gift of your full, accepting presence. This act of deep listening dissolves the alienation. We start to move from seeing the body as an it to be managed, to experiencing it as the us that we are. There is a story of a master woodcarver, known for his breathtaking creations. When asked about the secret to his art, he did not speak of grand designs or complex techniques. He said, "I simply listen to the wood. Before he makes a single cut, he spends time with the block of wood. He feels its grain, its density, its texture. He notices its knots and its imperfections. His mind doesn't wander to the forest where the tree once stood, or to the gallery where the final piece will be displayed. His mind becomes one with the wood. Right here, right now, he works with the nature of the wood, not against it. This is the quality of attention we are cultivating in the body scan. We are becoming artisans of presence, and our own body is the precious material. We are learning to listen to it, to be with it, to honor it. By grounding ourselves so firmly in the physical landscape of the body, we have built a stable foundation. We have come home to the tangible reality of our existence. From this grounded, embodied place, we are now prepared to observe something more subtle, more fluid, and more directly tied to the joys and sorrows of our life. the ever-changing stream of feelings that constantly flows through us. Having returned to the body, we have found our ground. We have discovered a place of stability, an anchor in the undeniable reality of the present moment. To be embodied is to be home. From this stable foundation, we are now equipped to observe the ever-changing weather patterns that move through this inner landscape. This is the second great foundation of mindfulness, the practice of observing feelings, or in the Pali language, Vedana. This is a crucial step on our journey, for it is here, at the level of feeling, that the seeds of our suffering are sown. It is here that the automatic chain reaction of clinging and aversion begins. To bring awareness to this process is to go directly to the root of our discontent. First, it is essential to understand what we mean by feeling in this context. We are not talking about complex emotions like love, jealousy, or grief. Those are intricate webs of thoughts, stories, and physical sensations. Vedana is something much more fundamental, more primal. It is the immediate, pre-verbal feeling tone that accompanies every single moment of our experience. It is the mind's instantaneous assessment of a sensation as either pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral. That's it. Just three simple categories. Think of it as the mind's automatic like, dislike, or ignore button that gets pressed with every sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and even every thought. A sip of warm tea on a cold day brings a pleasant feeling tone. The sudden, jarring sound of a car alarm brings an unpleasant feeling tone. The sensation of your clothes against your skin as you sit here now is, most likely, neutral. This subtle feeling tone is happening constantly, whether we are aware of it or not. It is the constant, subtle coloring of our entire existence. Why is it so important to pay attention to something so simple? Because this seemingly insignificant feeling tone is the trigger for the entire cycle of suffering. This is where the thirst of tanha is born. When a pleasant feeling arises, an unconscious process is initiated. The mind says, I like this. This is good. I want more of it. This is craving in its form of grasping and attachment. We cling to the pleasant feeling, and we suffer when it inevitably changes or disappears. As all feelings do, when an unpleasant feeling arises, the opposite reaction occurs just as quickly. The mind says, I don't like this. This is bad. Get it away from me. This is craving in its form of aversion and resistance. We push against the unpleasant feeling, and our very resistance creates a second layer of suffering on top of the initial discomfort. The tension of our pushing is a form of pain, and when a neutral feeling arises, the mind usually gets bored. It finds the neutral to be uninteresting, and so it starts seeking a more pleasant stimulation, leading to a state of subtle, restless dissatisfaction. This entire chain reaction from feeling tone to craving or aversion to suffering happens in a fraction of a second, completely on autopilot. It is a deeply ingrained, evolutionary habit for our ancestors. This mechanism was a survival tool. Pleasant feelings like the taste of sweet fruit led to seeking more, ensuring sustenance. Unpleasant feelings like the fear of a predator led to aversion, ensuring safety. But in our modern world, this same mechanism, left unchecked, becomes the engine of our chronic anxiety, our addictions, our obsessions, and our endless dissatisfaction Mindfulness of feeling is the revolutionary practice of inserting a single moment of conscious awareness right at the beginning of that chain. It is the act of creating a sacred pause between the feeling tone and the automatic reaction. In that pause, everything changes. Instead of being a slave to the reaction, we become a calm observer of the feeling. When a pleasant feeling arises, we train ourselves to simply note, pleasant, without immediately grasping for more. We can enjoy it for what it is, a fleeting, beautiful cloud in the sky of our awareness, without building a house on it. When an unpleasant feeling arises, we train ourselves to note, unpleasant, without immediately going to war with it. We meet it with awareness, not with resistance. This simple act of noticing diffuses the bomb. It breaks the automatic link. It creates a space where we can choose a wise response instead of being thrown into a blind reaction. Perhaps the most helpful way to visualize this practice is to think of surfing. Imagine your mind is the vast ocean, and your feelings are the waves. The waves are a natural and unavoidable feature of the ocean. You can never command the ocean to be flat. Some waves are gentle and pleasant swells. Some are powerful, turbulent, and frightening. A person who doesn't know how to relate to the ocean stands on the shore and gets battered. They might get angry at the waves, trying to punch them, or they might turn and run in fear, only to be caught by the undertow. This is our normal relationship to our feelings. We are at their mercy, constantly knocked over, tumbled around, and left breathless. The mindful person, the skilled surfer of the mind, cultivates a different relationship. The surfer does not try to stop the waves. That would be insane. Instead, the surfer has learned to respect the waves, to be present with them. They learn to feel the energy of a wave as it builds, to paddle in harmony with it, and then, at just the right moment, to get up on the board and ride its powerful energy. The surfer is not controlling the wave, but is in a dynamic, balanced, and skillful relationship with it. They use the wave's own power to move. Mindfulness of feelings is learning to be this surfer. When a wave of feeling begins to swell, whether it's the pleasant wave of joy or the unpleasant wave of anxiety, we learn to stay present on the surfboard of our awareness. We feel its energy, we observe its shape, and we learn to ride it with balance and grace until it naturally, inevitably, loses its momentum and subsides back into the great ocean of the mind. Let us make this practical. What do you do when a difficult and unpleasant feeling, like sadness or fear, arises? The first step is not to panic. Remember the surfer. The wave is just a wave. Come back to your anchor, the breath or the body, to find your stability. The second step is to gently acknowledge the feeling tone unpleasant. You can even say the word softly in your mind. This is not a judgment, but a simple recognition. The third and most crucial step is to investigate the feeling as a physical sensation. Where in your body do you feel this sadness? Is it a hollowness in your chest, a lump in your throat, a heaviness in your limbs? Move your attention out of the story in your head, I'm so sad because, and into the raw, physical sensations in your body. Fourth, bring a gentle, curious, and kind attention to these sensations. Don't try to make them go away. Don't analyze them. Just feel them. Are they sharp or dull? Are they hot or cold? Are they vibrating or still? Observe them, as you would observe a fascinating weather pattern, as pure energy moving through the landscape of your body. Finally, breathe with them. Imagine your breath can gently surround these sensations, not to suffocate them, but to give them space. Breathe into the area of tightness, not to force it open, but to offer it kindness. What you will discover, if you stay with this process, is something extraordinary. You will see that the feeling is not a solid, monolithic thing. It is a constantly changing, shimmering, impermanent process. It may intensify, it may shift, it may change its texture, and eventually, it will begin to dissipate, all on its own. By doing this, you learn a profound truth. You are not your feelings. You are the vast, open awareness that can hold any feeling. You are the surfer, not the wave. This practice of riding the waves of feeling is a direct path to emotional resilience and freedom. It systematically dismantles the deep-seated habits of craving and aversion that keep us trapped. Each time we meet a pleasant feeling with balanced observation, instead of clinging, we weaken the chains of attachment. Each time we meet an unpleasant feeling with gentle acceptance instead of resistance, we build our capacity to be with life as it is. We have learned to be present with our body, our physical home. We are now learning to be present with the emotional weather that passes through it. With this growing stability, we are ready to turn our mindful gaze toward the most complex, most seductive, and most turbulent phenomenon of all, the ceaseless, chattering stream of thoughts and stories that we call the mind. We have grounded ourselves in the earth of the body, finding a home in the tangible, present moment reality of our physical form. From that stable ground, we have learned to stand and watch the ocean of feeling, learning to surf the waves of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral tones, rather than being tossed about by them. Now, having established this profound stability, we turn our gaze inward and upward, to the sky of the mind itself. This is the third foundation of mindfulness, the observation of mind, or citta nupassana. This is where we come face to face with the ceaseless, brilliant, and often maddening stream of thoughts, moods, stories, and images that we typically identify as me. For many, this is the most challenging and yet the most liberating practice of all. For it is here that we learn to untie the very knots of identification that bind us to suffering. To begin, we must first appreciate the nature of the mind. Your mind is a thought-generating machine. That is its primary function. It produces thoughts in the same way your lungs breathe or your heart beats automatically, ceaselessly, and without any conscious effort from you. It is a magnificent storyteller, a relentless planner, a tireless judge, and a vivid daydreamer. It churns out memories from the distant past and constructs elaborate fantasies about the future. The problem has never been that the mind thinks. The problem is that we believe every single thought it produces. We take this automatic, often random, output of our brain and we treat it as gospel truth. We mistake the voice of the inner narrator for the voice of reality itself. We believe that we are the chattering in our head. This is the most profound illusion we live under. And to see through it is to find the key to a radical freedom. The most important insight you can ever have on this path is this: you are not your thoughts. Thoughts are events in your awareness. They arise. They exist for a moment, and they pass away. You are the space in which these events occur. Imagine you are sitting at a busy train station. All day long, trains come and go. There's the 8:05 Worry Express, followed by the 8:07 Planning Local. Later in the day, the 3:22 Nostalgia Limited pulls in, right next to the 3:24 Self-Criticism Freight Train. Our habitual way of living is to jump onto every single one of these trains without even knowing it. A worry train comes along, and before we know it, we're on board, being carried miles away to a destination of anxiety. A memory train arrives, and off we go. Lost in the past, we spend our entire lives being whisked away, arriving at stations of anger, sadness, and fear, without ever realizing we had a choice not to board the train in the first place. The practice of mindfulness of the mind is the practice of learning to simply sit on the platform of the station. You see the trains come, you notice where they are going, but you don't have to get on. You can let them pass. The most beautiful and enduring metaphor for this is one we have touched on before: the mind as the sky, and thoughts as the weather. Your fundamental nature, your core awareness, is like the vast, open, limitless sky. It is always present, always peaceful, and always unharmed. Your thoughts, moods, and emotions are like the weather that passes through the sky. Some days, the weather is beautiful, bright, sunny, with a few fluffy, white clouds of happy thoughts. Some days, it is overcast with a grey, persistent drizzle of boredom or sadness. Other days, a violent thunderstorm of anger or panic rages, with dark clouds, flashing lightning, and roaring thunder. As human beings, we get completely fixated on the weather. When it's stormy, we believe the entire sky has become the storm. We think, I am angry, or I am sad. We identify ourselves completely with the temporary weather pattern. The practice of mindfulness is the revolutionary act of remembering that you are the sky, not the weather. The sky is not afraid of the storm. The sky is not damaged by the lightning. The storm is simply an event happening in the sky. And like all weather, it will pass. The sky's nature remains unchanged. To know yourself as the sky is to find a place of unshakable peace and perspective, even in the midst of life's most violent storms. So how do we do this? How do we learn to rest as the sky? Instead of being tossed about by the clouds, we use a simple, yet powerful technique often called noting or labeling. As you sit in meditation, anchored in your breath, a thought will inevitably arise and hook your attention. The moment you realize your mind has been carried away, you have already woken up. That is the first step. The next step is, instead of getting lost in the content of the thought, you simply and gently recognize its type. You apply a soft, silent label in your mind. If you find yourself rehearsing a future conversation, you might just note, planning. If a memory from childhood appears, you can note, remembering. If you start criticizing your posture or your practice, you can note, judging. If you drift into a daydream, you can note, fantasizing. If you are caught in a loop of what-ifs, you can note, worrying. The label should be soft and light, like touching a soap bubble with a feather. It is not a deep analysis. It is a simple, non-judgmental acknowledgement of the mental event that is occurring. And after you have noted the thought, you gently guide your attention back to your anchor, the physical sensation of the breath. This simple act is profoundly transformative. When you are lost in a worry, the worry feels like reality. But when you step back and label it worrying, you are no longer inside the story. You are the observer of the story. You have externalized it. The thought is no longer a subjective truth. It has become an objective event in your mind. This process systematically robs the thoughts of their unconscious power to define your reality. It creates distance. It creates space. It creates freedom. As you continue this practice over time, something remarkable begins to happen. You start to see patterns. You see the deep grooves of habit that your mind loves to travel down. You might notice, whenever I feel a moment of stillness, my mind immediately jumps in with a to-do list. Or, when I receive criticism, my mind has a habit of replaying it for hours. You begin to see your personal brand of self-criticism, your go-to anxieties, your favorite escape fantasies. This seeing is not a cause for despair. It is a cause for celebration. You are no longer a blind victim of your own programming. You can see the machine at work. And once you can see the pattern, you are no longer completely bound by it. You have a choice. We can also apply this mindfulness to our general moods or states of mind, not just individual thoughts. You can learn to notice, the mind is restless right now, or the mind feels dull and sleepy, or there is joy present in the mind, or the mind is peaceful. Again, this is the sky noticing the weather. By acknowledging the overall climate of the mind, you are further strengthening your position as the calm, non-judgmental observer. You are not a restless person. You are the awareness in which restlessness is happening. This practice is the gateway to a profound inner peace. It is the method for stepping out of the noisy, crowded prison of your own narrative self and into the spacious, silent freedom of awareness. The chattering voice in your head may never fall completely silent, but you will come to see it as background noise. Rather than the center of your universe, you will learn to let it be, without letting it run your life. You are not the storm clouds. No matter how dark or frightening, you are, and have always been, the vast, clear sky. Having now learned to ground ourselves in the earth of the body, ride the waves of the ocean of feeling, and rest in the spaciousness of the sky of the mind, we are ready for the final layer of this investigation. We are ready to turn our attention to the universal laws that govern all of these experiences, the very fabric of reality itself. We have undertaken a remarkable journey inward. We have learned to inhabit the living landscape of the body, to surf the ever-changing waves of feeling, and to rest in the vast, open sky of the mind. Watching our thoughts pass by like clouds, we have become intimate with the contents of our moment-to-moment experience. Now, we are prepared for the fourth and final foundation of mindfulness, the deepest layer of seeing. We are going to shift our attention from the contents of our experience to the very nature of experience itself. We are going to look beyond the individual waves to see the nature of the ocean. This practice is known as mindfulness of dhammas, which can be understood as mindfulness of the underlying principles or laws of reality. Through our dedicated observation, our mind has become like a polished lens, sharp and clear enough to see the fundamental characteristics that are stamped onto every single thing in existence. These are known as the 3 marks of existence: or the three universal truths, to see them clearly, not as a philosophy to be believed, but as a living reality in our own being, is the very definition of wisdom. It is this seeing that liberates. The first of these universal marks is anicca, or impermanence. This is the truth that everything changes. Everything that has a beginning has an end. Everything that is put together will eventually fall apart. Nothing is static. Nothing is permanent. Look around you. The device you are watching this on was assembled, and one day it will cease to function. The building you are in is slowly, imperceptibly decaying. The mountains on the horizon are being worn down by wind and rain. Now, look within. Your body is in a constant state of flux. Cells are dying and being born. The breath you just took is gone forever. The thought you just had has vanished. The feeling of joy or sadness you felt this morning has already transformed into something else. Life is not a series of fixed snapshots. It is a flowing, dynamic, unstoppable river. This truth is not meant to be depressing. It is simply a statement of fact. The suffering arises not from the fact of change, but from our relentless demand that things stay the same when, by their very nature, they cannot. We fall in love, and we want that first flush of romance to last forever. We achieve a moment of success, and we want to build a permanent monument on that spot. We feel a moment of peace, and we cling to it desperately, fearing its departure. This is like trying to build a house in the middle of a flowing river. It is an exhausting, frustrating, and doomed enterprise. To truly understand impermanence is to begin to align ourselves with the flow of reality, not to fight against it. It allows us to hold our joys more tenderly, knowing they are precious and fleeting. It allows us to bear our sorrows more patiently, knowing that they too will pass. It is the great teacher of letting go. When you know, in your bones, that everything is transient, you naturally begin to loosen your grip. The second mark of existence flows directly from the first. It is dukkha, the truth of unsatisfactoriness. We have already met this truth as the starting point of our journey, but now we see it from a much deeper perspective, because every conditioned thing in the universe is impermanent anicca. Any attempt to find ultimate, lasting, or secure happiness in these things is bound to end in dissatisfaction, dukkha. It is not that life is all pain and misery. There is immense joy, beauty, and love to be found, but none of it is a reliable source of ultimate refuge. The perfect relationship will still have moments of friction. The dream job will still have stressful days. The healthy body will eventually age and fall ill. The peaceful state of mind will be disturbed by a new thought. This is not a cynical view. It is a profoundly realistic one that can save us from a lifetime of wasted effort. We spend our lives like thirsty people chasing mirages in the desert. We think that the next career, the next partner, the next purchase, the next achievement will finally be the real oasis where we can quench our thirst forever. But we get there, and the satisfaction is temporary, and soon the thirst returns, and we are off chasing the next mirage. Dukkha, seen in this light, is the diagnosis of this futile chase. It tells us that we are looking for water in a dry well. It gently turns our attention away from the impossible project of seeking permanent happiness in impermanent things, and points us toward a different kind of peace altogether, one that does not depend on external conditions. This leads us to the third, most profound, and most liberating of the three marks. It is anatta, or non-self. If this insight is the one that our minds might resist the most, it is also the one that holds the key to the deepest freedom. The doctrine of anatta does not mean that you do not exist. It is not a doctrine of annihilation. You are clearly here, hearing these words, having these thoughts. What it means is that within this experience, there is no fixed, independent, continuous, and unchanging I or me to be found. The entity we call a self is not a solid thing, but a dynamic process. The Buddhist analysis breaks down what we call a person into 5 interconnected processes, known as the 5 aggregates. There is the body, or form. There is feeling, the stream of pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral tones. There is perception, the process of recognizing and labeling things. There are mental formations, which includes all our thoughts, intentions, biases, and habits. And there is consciousness, the raw capacity to be aware of the other 4. What we call I is simply the temporary coming together of these 5 constantly changing processes. There is no little person, no CEO in the headquarters of your brain, who is in charge of it all. There is just the flow. The body is changing. The feelings are changing. The perceptions are changing. The thoughts are changing. And the focus of consciousness is changing. So where is this solid, permanent me that we are so busy defending and promoting? The Greek philosopher Heraclitus famously said, "No man ever steps in the same river twice." This is a beautiful illustration of impermanence, but the deeper truth of anatta adds a crucial second line, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man. The river has changed, but so have you. The person who began listening to this section is not the same person who is listening to this sentence now. Thousands of your cells have died and been replaced. You have had hundreds of thoughts and feelings that have arisen and passed away. You are a process, a verb, not a noun. At first, this idea can feel terrifying. It feels like the ground is being pulled out from under us. But if you stay with it, you will find that it is the ultimate liberation. If there is no fixed, solid self, then what is it that gets insulted when someone criticizes you? If there is no permanent self to aggrandize, what is the purpose of pride and ego? If you are not a fixed entity, you are not defined or imprisoned by your past. Your mistakes do not define your essence. Because you have no fixed essence, you are free, in every single moment, to change. The entire exhausting project of maintaining and defending me and protecting mine begins to seem absurd. The very foundation of clinging, the idea of a clinger and something to be clung to, dissolves. These 3 marks, anicca, dukkha, and anatta, are not separate truths. They are 3 facets of a single diamond. They are completely interwoven. It is because all things, including ourselves, are an impermanent process, anicca, with no solid, unchanging core, anatta, that any attempt to cling to them for lasting security is bound to result in dissatisfaction, dukkha. This is the final, unshakable truth that our mindfulness practice reveals. To see this is to wake up from the dream of the separate self. It is to understand that we are not isolated islands, but interconnected waves in a single, vast ocean of existence. But this profound seeing, this wisdom, can sometimes feel a little cold or abstract. For our transformation to be complete, this clarity of the head must be balanced with the warmth of the heart. The insight that shows us what to let go of must be paired with the loving qualities that make that letting go a joyful release, rather than a sterile subtraction. Our journey of observation is now complete. We have seen the landscape of our inner world, and we have understood the universal laws that govern it. Now, our path turns toward cultivation. We must now learn to intentionally water the seeds of love, compassion, and joy within us, for they are the true expression of a liberated heart. And our first step in this new direction is the practice of boundless, unconditional friendliness, the practice of metta. We have journeyed to the very edge of perception with the lens of mindfulness. We have peered into the fundamental nature of reality itself, seeing the universal truths of impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and the fluid, process nature of the self. This seeing, this wisdom, is profoundly liberating. It is like finally understanding the laws of physics that govern the universe. But wisdom alone is only one wing of a bird. For the bird of awakening to fly, it needs another wing, a wing of equal size and strength. That second wing is love, not the small, conditional, grasping love of romance and attachment, but avast, unconditional, and boundless love for all that lives. This is the practice of the Brahma-viharas, or the divine abodes, the sublime states of heart that are the natural expression of a liberated mind. And the first of these, the foundation of all the others, is the practice of metta, or loving kindness. If the mindfulness practices we have explored are about seeing clearly, the heart practices are about feeling warmly. Metta is the sincere, heartfelt wish for oneself and for all beings to be happy and free from the causes of suffering. It is not an emotion you are expected to feel on command. You cannot force yourself to feel loving kindness. Rather, it is an intention you cultivate, a seed you plant in the garden of your heart and tend to patiently. It is a skill, like learning to play a musical instrument. At first, your efforts might feel clumsy, repetitive, and inauthentic, but with gentle, persiste practice, the music begins to flow naturally. Metta is the direct antidote to the poisons of anger, ill will, resentment, and its more subtle cousin, judgment. It is the practice of softening the armor around our own heart. And in doing so, we discover a strength that is far greater than any defense we could ever build. The practice of cultivating metta traditionally begins in a place that may seem surprising, yet it is the only place it can truly begin with ourselves. This is often the most difficult step. We are so conditioned to see our own flaws, to criticize our own shortcomings, to feel that we are not worthy of love until we are perfect. But you cannot offer water to a thirsty person from a well that is dry. You cannot give to others what you deny yourself. To extend genuine, unconditional friendliness to the world, you must first learn to be a friend to yourself. So let us begin this practice together. Find a comfortable and relaxed posture. Allow your eyes to gently close. For a moment, let go of all you have learned, all you are trying to achieve, and just rest. Bring to mind an image of yourself. Perhaps you can see yourself as you are now, sitting here, or perhaps it is easier to connect with a feeling of kindness by visualizing yourself as a very young, innocent child, Or you might simply get in touch with the sincere wish to be happy that resides in every human heart. Now, we will silently, gently, offer a few phrases of loving kindness to ourselves. Let the phrases be spacious, allowing the intention behind them to settle into your heart. Silently repeat, "May I be safe. May I be healthy. May I be happy. May I live with ease." Don't worry if you don't feel a great wave of love. Just rest with the intention. Let the words be a gentle, soothing balm. May I be safe from inner and outer harm. May I be healthy, in body and in mind. May I be happy, truly happy and at peace. May I live with ease, free from struggle. Continue repeating the phrases at your own pace, allowing their gentle rhythm to fill your awareness. Be patient with whatever arises. If criticism comes up, just note it as judging and gently come back to the phrases. This is the foundational act of self-compassion. Now, having planted the seed of metta in our own heart, we let it grow. Bring to mind a benefactor, a good friend, or someone in your life for whom you feel natural gratitude and affection. It could be a teacher, a family member, a pet. Picture this being clearly in your mind's eye. See them smiling. Feel the warmth and goodness you associate with them. Now, direct the force of your well-wishing toward them, using the same phrases. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. Feel the genuine wish for their well-being flowing from your heart to theirs. Rest with this feeling, letting the metta flow freely and generously. This step helps to amplify the feeling of loving kindness, making it strong and stable. Next, we expand the circle of our heart even further. Bring to mind a neutral person. This is someone you see in your daily life, but have no strong feelings about one way or the other. It could be the person who checks out your groceries, a neighbor you pass on the street, the mail carrier. We so often walk through the world, seeing people as objects or roles, not as living, breathing beings with their own hopes and fears. This practice dissolves that wall of indifference. Picture this neutral person in your mind and recognize that they, just like you, wish to be happy. Now, extend the same phrases of metta to them. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be happy. May you live with ease. With this act, you are transforming a stranger into a fellow being, connected by the shared wish for well-being. Now we come to the most transformative and sometimes the most challenging part of the practice. We turn our attention to a difficult person. Bring to mind someone with whom you have friction, someone who has hurt you or whom you find irritating. It is wise to start with someone who is only mildly difficult, not the source of your deepest trauma. Acknowledge any feelings of resentment or anger that may arise. Do not judge them, just allow them to be there. The practice is not to force yourself to like this person. The practice is to see if it is possible, for the sake of your own freedom, to release the burden of your anger and extend a simple, human wish for their well-being. Recognize that their harmful actions likely came from their own deep suffering, their own delusion. And so, as an act of liberating your own heart from the poison of resentment, you offer the intention, may you be safe, may you be healthy, may you be happy, may you live with ease. This can be very difficult. If it is too much, It is perfectly fine to return to offering metta to yourself. But to the extent that you can do this, you are freeing yourself from a heavy chain. Finally, having worked with these specific individuals, we allow our heart to become boundless. Imagine the feeling of metta, this warm, golden light of goodwill, radiating out from your heart in all directions. Let it extend to everyone in the room with you, in the building, in your city. Let it radiate out to everyone in your country, friends and adversaries alike. Let it extend across continents and oceans. To all people on this earth, let it extend to the animals, the birds, the fish, the insects, every living creature. May all beings be safe. May all beings be healthy. May all beings be happy. May all beings live with ease. Rest in this state of boundless friendliness. A heart without walls. A love without conditions. This practice is a powerful form of mental and emotional alchemy. You cannot simultaneously hold a genuine wish for someone's happiness and a feeling of anger toward them in your mind at the same time. The light of metta literally displaces the darkness of hatred. It is the ultimate counter-agent. A famous story tells of the Buddha's jealous cousin, who, in a fit of rage, unleashed a ferocious, intoxicated elephant named Nalagiri to charge at and kill the Buddha. As the crowd screamed and fled in terror, the Buddha stood his ground, calm and serene. He did not raise a weapon or a shield. He simply radiated a powerful, unwavering field of pure metta towards the charging beast. The story says that as Nalagiri entered this field of loving kindness, its murderous rage began to dissolve. Its steps slowed, its aggression subsided, and it came to a halt before the Buddha and knelt, completely tamed. This story illustrates that metta is not a weak, sentimental, or passive state. It is a profound and powerful force, capable of disarming the deepest layers of rage and fear, both in the world around us and, most importantly, within our own hearts. By cultivating metta, we are learning to fill our own well, so that our kindness can naturally overflow to others. It is the most effective way to dissolve the hard shell of the ego, to soften our judgments, and to release the poisons of anger that we have carried for so long. As we strengthen this sincere wish for all beings to be happy, a natural question arises in our hearts. What happens when we see that they are not happy? What happens when we are confronted with their pain? This sincere wish for happiness, when it meets the reality of suffering, transforms into the next of the divine abodes. It evolves into karuna, the trembling of the heart we call compassion. With the practice of metta, we have planted a garden in our heart. We have learned to cultivate a boundless, unconditional friendliness, a sincere wish for ourselves and for all beings to be happy. This warm field of goodwill is a beautiful and necessary foundation, but as we open our hearts to the world, our wish for happiness inevitably collides with the first noble truth, the undeniable reality of suffering. We wish for our loved ones to be happy, and then they fall ill. We wish for the world to be at peace, and we see conflict and injustice. We wish for ourselves to be happy, and we are met with our own moments of failure, loss, and pain. What happens to our loving kindness when it meets suffering? It transforms. It deepens. It evolves into the second of the divine abodes, the trembling of the noble heart, the quality of karuna, Or compassion. If metta is the wish, may you be happy. Karuna is the wish, may you be free from suffering. The word itself is said to mean to tremble or to quiver. It is the visceral, embodied response of an open heart when it comes into contact with pain. It is not a thought or an idea, it is a felt resonance. It is crucial, however, to distinguish true compassion from its near enemy, pity. Pity looks down from a position of superiority. It says, "Oh, you poor thing," and in doing so, it creates a separation between the observer and the sufferer. Pity can feel condescending and disempowering. Compassion, on the other hand, stands on equal ground. It says, "I am with you in this. I recognize your pain because I know the nature of pain myself." It is built on the recognition of a shared humanity. It closes the distance. Pity reinforces separation. Compassion builds connection. It is also distinct from simple empathy. Empathy is the ability to feel what another person is feeling. It is a vital component of compassion, the doorway through which it enters. But empathy alone can be overwhelming. We can become so flooded by another's pain that we are paralyzed, unable to help. This is often the root of what is called burnout. Karuna is empathy plus wisdom. It is not just feeling the pain of another. It is the active, heartfelt wish to see that pain alleviated, coupled with the wisdom to act skillfully. It is empathy in action. And just as with metta, the most important and often most challenging place to apply this practice is with ourselves. We live with a relentless inner critic, a harsh judge who sits on the bench of our mind, ready to condemn us for every mistake, every failure, every perceived imperfection. When we are hurting, this voice rarely offers comfort. Instead, it says, "You should have known better. You're not good enough. It's all your fault." This voice is the primary source of the second arrow, the self-inflicted suffering that we layer on top of life's unavoidable pain. Self-compassion is the radical act of firing that inner critic and replacing it with a voice of unconditional kindness and support. It is learning to treat ourselves with the same care and understanding that we would offer to a dear friend who was going through a difficult time. The practice of self-compassion can be understood through three core components. The first is mindfulness. We must first be willing to turn toward our pain and acknowledge it without being swept away by it. Instead of ignoring our sadness or distracting ourselves from our anxiety, we pause and say, "This is a moment of suffering. This hurts. We are not the suffering, but we are willing to be present with it." The second component is the recognition of our common humanity. In moments of failure or intense pain, we often feel terribly isolated. We feel that we are the only one who is this flawed, this broken. The voice of shame tells us, "It's just me." Common humanity is the antidote to this shame. It is the gentle remembrance that imperfection, failure, and pain are intrinsic parts of the human experience. It is not just you. To be human is to be vulnerable and imperfect. This understanding connects us to others rather than isolating us. The third, and most active, component is self-kindness. Having acknowledged our pain and recognized our shared humanity, we now actively offer ourselves warmth and care. We counter the harsh voice of the inner critic with a voice of gentle encouragement. We might even place a hand over our heart, a gesture of physical soothing, and offer ourselves phrases of comfort. This is not about letting ourselves off the hook for our mistakes. but about creating an inner environment of safety and support that makes learning and growth possible. Let us try a brief practice you can use anytime you feel overwhelmed. It is called a self-compassion break. The next time you are struggling with a difficult emotion, find a quiet moment. First, mindfully acknowledge the pain. This is a moment of suffering. Ouch, this is stressful. Then, connect with common humanity. Suffering is a part of life. Other people feel this way. I'm not alone. Finally, offer yourself kindness. Place a hand over your heart. Feel its warmth and say to yourself, may I be kind to myself in this moment. May I give myself the compassion that I need. Repeat these phrases as many times as you need. This simple practice can transform your relationship with yourself, changing you from your own worst enemy into your own most steadfast ally. A legitimate concern often arises here. If I open my heart to all the suffering in the world, won't I be completely overwhelmed? Won't I burn out? This is the fear of compassion fatigue. But what we often call compassion fatigue is more accurately described as empathy fatigue. It comes from taking on the suffering of others without the wisdom and balance to hold it. True karuna is not draining, it is boundless. The reason is that it is practiced in concert with the other divine abodes, especially the quality of equanimity, which we will explore later. True compassion understands that it cannot fix everything. It does what it can, with wisdom and love, but it does not attach itself to the outcome. It can hold the pain of the world without being destroyed by it, because it is rooted in a deep peace and a profound understanding of the limits of one's own power. It is a renewable resource, a wellspring of strength, not a reservoir of energy to be depleted. There is a powerful and ancient story that embodies this boundless nature of compassion. It is the story of the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, a being who postponed their own final enlightenment out of a vow to help all other beings become free from suffering. In a deep state of meditation, Avalokiteshvara looked out upon the universe and truly heard the cries of the world. They heard every cry of pain, every sob of grief, every shriek of terror from every being in every corner of existence. The suffering was so vast, so immense, so overwhelming, that their heart broke. In fact, their head literally shattered into 1,000 pieces from the sheer force of this immense empathy. But the story does not end there. The Buddhas, seeing this incredible act of compassion, came and gathered the pieces. They reassembled Avalokiteshvara, not as they were before, but in a new, more powerful form. They gave them 1,000 heads, so they could perceive the suffering in all directions at once, and they gave them 1,000 arms, and in the palm of each hand was an eye of wisdom, so they could skillfully reach out and offer exactly what was needed to alleviate the suffering they saw. This image of the 1,000-armed Avalokiteshvara is not just a myth, it is a profound teaching. It shows that true compassion is not afraid of being broken by the pain of the world. It is willing to have its heart shattered, and from that breaking, it does not emerge weaker, but infinitely stronger, with a boundless capacity to respond with skillful, wise, and loving action. Compassion, then, is the heart's courageous response to the reality of dukkha. It is the practice that allows us to turn toward pain, our own and others, with a strength that is born of tenderness. It is the force that motivates all acts of kindness, healing, and justice in the world. With metta, we cultivate the sincere wish for all beings to find happiness. With Karuna, we cultivate the sincere wish for all beings to be free from suffering. We have now addressed our relationship with both the joys and the sorrows of life. But what of our relationship to the joy and success of others? How do we respond when we see happiness that is not our own? This question leads us to the third of the 4 divine abodes, the radiant quality that is the direct antidote to envy and jealousy, the practice of mudita, or sympathetic joy. We have walked together into the heart of loving kindness, learning to wish for happiness for ourselves and all others. We have found the courage to stand in the presence of pain with compassion, wishing for all beings to be free from suffering. With these 2 wings of metta and karuna, our heart has learned to fly through the sunny skies of joy and the stormy weather of sorrow. But there is a particular kind of turbulence, a subtle and sharp crosswind that can catch us off guard and send us into a spiral. It is the feeling that arises when we witness the happiness, the success, and the good fortune of other people. This is the realm of comparison, the breeding ground of jealousy and envy. To navigate this tricky terrain, we need the third of the 4 divine abodes, the radiant practice of mudita, which can be translated as sympathetic or appreciative joy. Let us be honest with ourselves. We have all felt it. We are scrolling through our phone and see a friend's pictures from a spectacular vacation, and for a moment, our own life feels dull and grey. A colleague receives the promotion we were hoping for, and alongside our congratulations, there is a bitter pang of disappointment. We see someone who seems to have a perfect relationship, a perfect family, a perfect body, and we are left with a feeling of inadequacy. This is the poison of comparison, the disease of the ego. It springs from a deep and mistaken belief that happiness is a limited resource, that life is a zero-sum game. The ego operates from a mindset of scarcity. It believes there is only so much joy, so much success, so much light to go around. If someone else gets a large slice of the pie, it must mean there is less left for me. Envy is the pain we feel at another's good fortune, born from the fear that their light somehow diminishes our own. It is an exhausting and isolating way to live, a prison of our own making, where the success of others feels like a personal failure. Mudita is the key that unlocks this prison. It is the radical and joyful practice of celebrating the success and happiness of others, as if it were our own. It is the genuine delight that arises in the heart when we see goodness and beauty flourishing in the world. Mudita comes from an abundance mindset. It understands that happiness is not a finite pie to be divided up. It is not a competition. In fact, it is the exact opposite. Joy is generative. It is contagious. It is expansive. The more there is in the world, the more there is for everyone to share. To practice mudita is to learn to drink from this infinite well, like metta and karuna. Mudita is a quality we can intentionally cultivate. The practice begins by finding a comfortable posture, allowing the mind to settle, and generating a feeling of gentle goodwill. First, bring to mind a person for whom you feel great affection and respect, someone whose happiness is easy for you to celebrate. It could be a dear friend, a child, or a mentor. Now, bring to mind something wonderful that has happened to them. Perhaps they achieved a lifelong goal. Perhaps they are deeply in love. Perhaps they simply possess a beautiful quality of kindness or integrity. Hold their image and their good fortune in your mind, and allow a genuine feeling of joy to arise for them. Let your heart celebrate their success. You can use phrases to support this intention. Silently repeating, "I am so happy for you. I rejoice in your happiness and your good fortune. May your joy and success continue and increase." Feel the warmth of this shared joy. There is no scarcity here, only abundance. Next, in a step that may seem unusual, we practice mudita for ourselves. This is not about cultivating pride or ego. It is the antidote to the harsh inner critic. It is the practice of appreciating the wholesomeness within our own being. Take a moment to reflect on a time you acted with genuine goodness. It doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Perhaps you were unexpectedly kind to a stranger. Perhaps you were patient when it was difficult. Perhaps you acted with generosity or integrity. Remember that action and the good feeling it produced. Now, rejoice in that goodness. Silently repeat, "I rejoice in the good that I have done. I appreciate the wholesome qualities within me. May this goodness continue to grow." This practice helps us to value our own capacity for virtue and to water those positive seeds within us. Now, we expand the circle. Bring to mind a neutral person, an acquaintance you neither like nor dislike. Imagine something good happening for them. Perhaps you hear that they've gotten a new job they wanted, or you simply see them on the street looking happy and radiant. Instead of letting this pass by unnoticed, you can make a conscious effort to share in that joy, acknowledge their good fortune, and offer them your silent appreciation. How wonderful for you. I rejoice in your good fortune. May your happiness continue. This practice helps to dissolve the walls of indifference that separate us from the people we share our world with every day. Finally, we approach the most challenging and potent form of the practice. Bring to mind someone you feel a sense of competition or envy towards. It could be a rival at work, or someone whose life seems to sparkle with a success that you crave. Be honest about the feelings of envy or resentment that arise. Acknowledge them with mindfulness, without judging yourself for having them. Now, see if it is possible to shift your perspective. This person, just like you, is simply trying to find happiness. Their success does not take away from your potential. See if you can find one small thing to appreciate about them: their hard work, their talent, their dedication, and then, as a profound act of healing for your own heart, see if you can offer them a sliver of mudita. I acknowledge your success. I appreciate your efforts. May you continue to have happiness and good fortune. This practice is a direct assault on the very root of jealousy. It frees you from the painful obsession with another's life and returns a vast amount of energy to your own. There is a beautiful teaching that compares joy to the flame of a candle. Imagine a single candle burning steadily in a dark room. Its light is pure and beautiful. Now, another unlit candle is brought near. The first candle leans in and shares its flame. The second candle now burns just as brightly. Look at the first candle. Has it lost anything? Has its flame been diminished in any way? No. Its light is just as bright as it was before. But now, the total amount of light in the room has doubled. You can bring 100 candles, 1,000 candles, 1,000,000 candles, and the original flame can light them all without ever losing any of its own brilliance. In fact, with every candle it lights, the world becomes an infinitely brighter place. Joy is exactly like that flame. Envy is the delusion that if you share your flame, yours will go out. Mudita is the wisdom of knowing that light only begets more light. To rejoice in the happiness of another does not subtract from your own. It multiplies the total joy in the world and allows you to participate in it. If you can only be happy when good things happen to you, your opportunities for happiness are quite limited. But if you can learn to be happy when good things happen to anyone, your opportunities for joy become boundless. You can find joy on your walk to work, seeing a child laugh. You can find joy in the success of your colleagues. You can find joy in the beauty and talent you see all around you. Your heart becomes a vast field, ready to bloom with the happiness of the entire world. This is the gift of mudita. It is the freedom from the cramped, dark prison of comparison. It is the transformation of envy into inspiration, of rivalry into kinship. It is the discovery of a happiness that is not dependent on your own personal circumstances. We have now cultivated metta, the warm sun of loving kindness. We have cultivated karuna, the gentle rain of compassion that soothes the fires of pain. And we have cultivated mudita, the joyful celebration of every flower that blooms in the garden of the world. These three qualities create a heart that is rich, open, and deeply connected. But for this garden to thrive in all seasons, through storms and droughts, it needs one more thing. It needs the deep, unshakable ground of wisdom and balance. This warmth of the heart must be held within the steady container of a calm and even mind. This leads us to the fourth and final divine abode, the pinnacle of these heart practices, the unshakable peace of upekkha, or equanimity. We have journeyed deep into the radiant territory of the heart. We have learned to cultivate metta, the warm sun of loving kindness, wishing happiness for all. We have practiced karuna, the gentle rain of compassion, wishing for all suffering to be soothed. We have celebrated with mudita, the appreciative joy that delights in the good fortune of others. Our hearts, through these practices, have become warmer, more open, and more deeply connected to the world. But this very openness, this profound engagement with the joys and sorrows of life, brings with it a new challenge. What happens when our heartfelt wish for another's happiness is met with their continued misfortune? What keeps our compassion from turning into despair in the face of immense, intractable suffering? What keeps our sympathetic joy from becoming attached and disappointed when the good fortune of others eventually fades? The warm, active, and reaching qualities of the heart need a container. They need a foundation of profound stability and wisdom, a quality that can hold all of life's vicissitudes with unshakable peace. This is the fourth and final divine abode, the pinnacle of the heart practices. It is the sublime, balancing quality of upekkha, or equanimity. It is vital to begin by stating clearly what equanimity is not. Its most common mistranslation and its most dangerous near enemy is indifference. Equanimity is not apathy. It is not coldness, detachment, or a state of not caring. Indifference is a form of aversion, a closing down of the heart, a way of protecting oneself from pain by refusing to feel. It is a state of numbness. Equanimity is the exact opposite. It is the fullest expression of an open heart. A heart so open and so vast that it can hold everything, the beautiful and the ugly, the pleasant and the painful, the success and the failure, without being knocked off its center. It is a state of profound balance, of even-mindedness, of deep and loving engagement with life, but without clinging to any particular outcome. The best image for equanimity is that of a great, ancient mountain. Picture this mountain, solid and majestic, its base rooted deep in the earth, its peak touching the sky. In the summer, the sun shines warmly upon its slopes, and gentle breezes blow. The mountain receives the warmth, but it does not become attached to it. It does not fear the coming of winter. In the autumn, strong winds howl from the north. Cold and biting, the mountain feels the full force of the wind. Yet it is not shaken. It does not resist or complain. It simply stands. In the winter, it is covered in heavy snow and ice. In the spring, violent thunderstorms rage around its peak, with flashing lightning and roaring thunder. Through all the changing seasons, through all the different kinds of weather, the mountain remains. It is not indifferent to the weather. It is in intimate contact with all of it. But its fundamental stability is deep, quiet peace, is not dependent on whether the day is sunny or stormy. A mind cultivated in equanimity is like that mountain. It can experience the full range of life's joys and sorrows, its gains and losses, its praise and its blame, while remaining grounded, steady, and fundamentally at peace. Equanimity is what makes the other three divine abodes truly boundless and sustainable. It is the wisdom that protects love. With metta, we wish for all beings to be happy, but equanimity understands that we cannot control their happiness. Their happiness ultimately depends on their own actions, their own karma. We can offer our love, our support, our help, but we cannot walk the path for them. Equanimity allows us to love freely and fully, without our love becoming a grasping, anxious need to fix or control the other person. It is the wisdom that lets us plant the seeds of kindness and then step back, allowing them to grow in their own time. With karuna, we feel the pain of the world and wish for it to end. But equanimity understands that we cannot solve all the world's problems. It sees the vast, complex web of causes and conditions that lead to suffering. This understanding prevents our compassion from collapsing into what we call burnout, which is really just empathic despair. A heart with equanimity does not shut down in the face of overwhelming pain. It remains open, offering help where it can, with courage and grace, but without being shattered by the things it cannot change. It is the calm, steady hand of the surgeon, not the trembling hand of a panicked relative. With mudita, we rejoice in the happiness of others, but equanimity remembers the truth of anicca, of impermanence. It knows that this happiness, this success, this good fortune is also a temporary condition. This prevents our sympathetic joy from turning into attachment or vicarious living. We can celebrate the beautiful moments fully, without clinging to them or being disappointed when they inevitably change. Equanimity is the spaciousness that allows love, compassion, and joy to flow freely, without becoming tangled in the weeds of attachment, anxiety, and despair. At its core, equanimity is rooted in a deep sense of humility. It is the profound acceptance that we are not the masters of the universe. We can act with the best intentions, with all the skill and love we can muster, but the results are ultimately out of our hands. Think of a wise farmer. She prepares the soil with great care. She selects the best seeds. She plants them at the perfect time, and she waters them diligently. She does everything within her power to ensure a good harvest. But she knows that she does not control the weather. There may be a drought. There may be a flood. There may be a blight of insects. The wise farmer does her work with full dedication. And then she lets go. She hopes for the best. But she is prepared to meet whatever comes with a balanced mind, knowing she has done all she could. This is equanimity in action. It is freedom from the exhausting tyranny of needing to be in control of outcomes. This profound balance is also deeply connected to the wisdom of anatta, or non-self. The reason we are so easily thrown off balance by life's events is because our ego, our sense of a solid me, is so deeply invested. The ego takes everything personally. When we succeed, I feel proud. When we fail, I feel ashamed. When we are praised, I feel inflated. When we are blamed, I feel diminished. This I is the fixed target that the 8 worldly winds are always hitting. But as we begin to see through the illusion of this solid, separate self, as we begin to experience ourselves as a fluid and interconnected process, the target gets smaller. The winds still blow, but there is less for them to hit. Equanimity is the natural, peaceful balance of a mind that is no longer organized around the frantic project of protecting and promoting a fictional self. Together, the 4 divine abodes form a complete architecture for a liberated heart. Metta, Karuna, and Mudita are the active, radiant, and engaged energies of love, reaching out to connect with the world. Upekkha, or equanimity, is the vast, cool, and spacious container of wisdom that holds them all, giving them ground, balance, and unshakable strength. It is the ultimate expression of a heart that is both fully open and completely free. Over this entire journey, we have been assembling a powerful and compassionate toolkit for inner transformation. Through the practice of mindfulness, we have learned to see our inner world with startling clarity. Through the practice of the 4 divine abodes, we have learned to hold that world with boundless, unconditional love. Our minds are becoming clearer. Our hearts are becoming softer. We are now, at long last, ready to use these tools. We are ready to turn back and gently approach the oldest, heaviest, and most tightly packed stones in our invisible backpack. With the light of wisdom and the warmth of compassion, we can now begin the sacred work of healing our past and letting it go. We have spent this entire journey assembling a beautiful and powerful set of tools. With the clarity of mindfulness, we have learned to see. With the boundless heart of loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity, we have learned to love. Our inner house is now in order. Our mind is clearer, and our heart is warmer. We are now ready, at long last, to begin the work we set out to do. We are ready to turn and face the invisible backpack we have been carrying for so long, and with great skill and tenderness, begin to unpack the heaviest stones. And for so many of us, the heaviest stones of all are the ones we have carried from the past. They are the stones of regret, the sharp rocks of resentment, the dense weight of old sorrows and traumas. They are the ghosts that haunt the present moment, draining our vitality and coloring our experience with a sadness we can't quite name. Today, we learn to set them down. The first and most liberating insight we must grasp is this: the past does not exist. Not anymore. It is gone. It is over. What we experience as the past is, in reality, À présent moment event. It is a thought appearing in the mind now. It is an image flashing on the screen of consciousness now. It is a feeling, a tightness in the chest or a sinking in the stomach, happening in the body right now. We are not being harmed by what happened back then. We are being harmed by the memory of it, which we are reactivating in our own minds. In this very moment, this understanding is the key. It moves the problem from something that is fixed, unchangeable, and external to something that is internal, present, and workable. We cannot change what happened 5 years ago, but we absolutely can change our relationship to the thoughts and feelings about it that are arising right now. Let us start with the painful weight of regret. This is the stone etched with the words, if only I had said yes. If only I had known better. I should have done that differently. The mind can get caught in a torturous loop, replaying an old mistake over and over, as if by re-watching the film enough times, we could somehow change the ending. This is a form of self-torment. To release this stone, we bring our tools to bear. First, we apply mindfulness. We see the regretful thoughts arise, and we note them without judgment. Ah, there is regretting. We see them as just thoughts, just clouds passing in the sky of the mind. Second, we apply self-compassion, the practice of karuna for ourselves. We offer kindness to the person who made that mistake, our younger self. We recognize that we acted with the knowledge, the wisdom, and the resources that we had at that time. We could not have done differently, because if we could have, we would have. We can hold that past self with the tenderness we would offer a friend, saying, "You did the best you could with what you knew." Finally, we apply wisdom. We ask, what is the lesson here? Every mistake contains a precious teaching. Once we have truly learned the lesson, the need to keep replaying the event diminishes. The past is no longer a source of torment, but a source of wisdom. We honor the past by learning from it, not by living in it. Perhaps the heaviest stones of all are those of resentment. The hurts inflicted upon us by others. We carry these hot coals of anger in our hearts, believing that our anger is somehow punishing the person who wronged us. But as the saying goes, holding on to resentment is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. The only person being harmed is us. The anger consumes our energy, poisons our joy, and it keeps us tethered to the very person and event we wish to be free from. The medicine for this poison is forgiveness, but forgiveness is one of the most misunderstood concepts in our culture. So let us be very clear about what it is not. Forgiveness is not condoning or excusing the harmful act. It is not saying that what happened was okay. It is not necessarily forgetting what happened, nor is it a requirement to reconcile with or trust the person who hurt you. Forgiveness is none of these things. Forgiveness is a profound act of self-liberation. It is for you, and for you alone. It is the decision to stop carrying the heavy burden of anger and bitterness. It is the choice to untie the knot that binds you to your past pain. It is taking the hot coal out of your own hand so that you can finally heal. You can begin this practice gently, in the quiet of your own heart. Bring to mind someone toward whom you hold resentment. It is wise to start with someone whose offense was relatively minor. Acknowledge the pain fully. Allow yourself to feel the hurt. Then, see if you can hold this person in your awareness, recognizing that they too are a suffering human being. that their harmful actions most likely came from their own confusion, their own pain, their own delusion. And then, for your own sake, you can offer these words of release. Silently in your heart, I have been carrying the pain of this anger for long enough. For my own peace, for my own freedom, I now release you. I let go of this burden. You may need to do this 100 times. It is a process, but with every repetition, the grip of resentment weakens, and your own heart becomes lighter and more free. And as you practice forgiving others, you will find you must also learn to forgive yourself. Applying this same medicine of release to the ways you have fallen short, the ways you have caused harm, remembering that you too are a human being, worthy of a fresh start. There is a timeless story that captures the essence of this practice. Two Zen monks were on a long journey. They came to a river where the current was strong. A beautiful young woman in a fine silk kimono was standing there, hesitating, afraid to cross. Without a word, the older of the two monks strode over to her, lifted her onto his back, carried her across the swirling river, and gently set her down on the other side. He then bowed and continued his journey. The younger monk was utterly scandalized. Their monastic vows strictly forbade them from even touching a woman, let alone carrying one in such a manner. He followed his companion, fuming in silence. An hour passed, 2 hours. His mind was a storm of judgment and anger. Finally, unable to contain himself any longer, he burst out, "Brother, how could you do that? You know we are forbidden to touch a woman. You have broken our most sacred vows." The older monk looked at the younger one with eyes full of compassion. He smiled gently and said, "Brother, I set that woman down by the riverbank 2 hours ago. Are you still carrying her? This is the question we must all ask ourselves. What are we still carrying? What old hurts? What ancient arguments? What long-gone people are we still carrying in our minds, weighing us down with every step we take?" Letting go of the past is the practice of setting it all down on the riverbank. It is the choice to stop traveling with ghosts. It is not a single, dramatic event, but a continuous, moment-to-moment choice to inhabit the present, to bring our full attention to the life that is right here, right now, instead of the one that is gone forever. By releasing the heavy stones of yesterday, we reclaim the energy and vitality we need to live fully today. We free our hands to build a new future. But just as the past can be a prison of regret, the future can be a prison of anxiety. And so, having learned to release our grip on what has been, our next great task is to learn how to release our grip on what is yet to come. Having learned to gently set down the heavy stones of the past, we might feel a sense of lightness, a newfound freedom in the present moment. We have released the ghosts of regret and resentment, but the mind is a creature of habit. No sooner has it let go of its obsession with what has been, than it immediately pivots and projects itself into what is yet to come. The backpack of the past is replaced by the backpack of the future, filled with the heavy stones of what if. What if I fail? What if I get sick? What if they leave me? What if I'm not safe? This is the landscape of anxiety. It is the suffering we create by leaving the reality of the present to live in a future that does not exist. Today, we learn to let go of this burden as well. The fundamental insight here is the mirror image of what we learned about the past. Just as the past is only a memory thought happening now, the future is only a fantasy thought happening now. It is a mental construction. a movie we project onto the screen of the present moment. Anxiety is the emotional and physical reaction our body has to believing that a scary movie is real. When you are sitting in your chair worrying about a meeting next week, you are not actually in the meeting. You are safe in your chair, but your mind is rehearsing a catastrophic script, and your body reacts as if the threat were real. Your heart beats faster. Your palms sweat. Your stomach clenches. You are suffering in the present because of a fiction about the future. The first step to freedom is to see this clearly. Your anxiety is not caused by the future. It is caused by your thoughts about the future, which are happening right now. This is where we must draw a crucial distinction between wise planning and neurotic worry. Our culture often conflates the two, but they are fundamentally different energies. Wise planning is a present moment, creative, and empowering activity. It involves looking at a situation clearly, assessing potential challenges, gathering resources, and taking skillful steps now to increase the likelihood of a positive outcome. Planning is grounded and calm. It asks, what can I do right now to prepare? It leads to action. Worry, on the other hand, is a useless and destructive mental habit. It is a repetitive loop of fearful, catastrophic thinking that goes nowhere. It is agitated and completely divorced from productive action. Worry asks, what if? What if? What if over and over again? It does not solve problems. It is the problem. It is like spinning the wheels of a car stuck in the mud. It burns a tremendous amount of fuel, makes a lot of noise, and digs you even deeper into the hole. So how do we stop the spinning wheels? How do we step out of the scary movie in our heads? We use the tools we have been cultivating. When you feel the familiar knot of anxiety tightening in your stomach, the first step is to apply mindfulness. Recognize and name the experience. This is the feeling of anxiety. This is the thought pattern of worrying. Just this simple act of naming it creates a little space. The second step is to come home to the body. Anxiety is a story in the mind, but the body is your anchor to reality. Feel your feet planted firmly on the floor. Feel the solid weight of your body in the chair. Bring your full attention to the physical sensation of 3 slow, deep breaths. In this simple act, you have stepped out of the imaginary future and landed squarely back in the safety of the present moment. You have cut the fuel line to the anxious thoughts. From this grounded place, you can gently question the worry. You can ask the anxious thought, are you 100% true? Do I know for a certainty that this disaster will happen? The honest answer is always no. Then you can ask, is this thought helpful? Is obsessing over this right now helping me in any way? The answer is almost always no. The anxious mind loves the game of what if. Our practice is to gently but firmly shift the question to what is actually, factually true. Right now, what is true is the feeling of the breath, the sound of the room, the sensation of the clothes on your skin. By repeatedly and patiently escorting our attention from the fantasies of what if to the simple reality of what is, we retrain the brain. We build the muscle of presence, and the muscle of worry begins to atrophy from lack of use. There is a simple story of a farmer who had planted all his crops for the season. He had done the hard work of plowing the field and sowing the seeds. Now, all he could do was wait for the rain that would make them grow. He became consumed with worry. He would pace his fields all day, looking at the empty sky. At night, he couldn't sleep. his mind racing. What if the rains don't come? What if a drought burns up all my crops? My family will starve. Then his thoughts would swing to the other extreme. What if it rains too much? What if a flood washes away all the seeds? My family will starve. He was completely paralyzed by these imagined futures, unable to eat, unable to rest. Living in a constant state of terror, a wise neighbor saw his distress and came to visit. The farmer poured out all his fears. The neighbor listened patiently until he was finished. Then he said, "Friend, you are right. The weather is uncertain. But tell me, can your worry make the clouds form? Can your fear stop a flood?" The farmer admitted he could not. "Then you are wasting your energy fighting a battle you cannot win." The neighbor said, "But look here. The blade of your plow is dull from the planting. Your fence over there needs mending. You cannot control the weather, but you can sharpen your plow. You can mend your fence. You can do the work that is here for you to do right now." This is the great wisdom of letting go of the future. It is not about being passive, lazy, or unprepared. It is the art of radically distinguishing between what is within our control and what is not. We pour our full energy and intelligence into the things we can control: our actions, our intentions, our efforts in this present moment. We sharpen our plow, we mend our fence, and then we practice the art of releasing our grip on the outcomes we cannot control. This leads us to the deepest teaching about the future, the wisdom of embracing uncertainty. Our desperate need for certainty, for a guarantee that everything will be okay, is a primary engine of anxiety. We want a signed contract from the universe promising us health, success, and happiness. But life offers no such contract. The only thing that is certain about the future is that it is uncertain. We can either spend our lives fighting this fundamental truth, which is a constant source of stress, or we can learn to relax into it. We can learn to reframe uncertainty not as a threat, but as a space of possibility. Because the future is unwritten, anything can happen. Because the future is unknown, there is room for grace, for miracles, for creativity, for unexpected joy. To embrace uncertainty is to cultivate a deep and abiding trust. This is not a blind trust that everything will unfold exactly as we wish. It is a trust in ourselves. It is a trust in our own ability to meet whatever comes, the rain or the drought, with the resources we have been so carefully cultivating: the clarity of our mindfulness, the strength of our concentration, and the boundless compassion of our open heart. This is the only true security there is. To let go of the future is to find our footing in the here and now. We plan wisely, we act skillfully, and we release the results, learning to rest in the vast, open, and liberating space of not knowing. We have now addressed the great shadows cast by the past and the future. We have learned to unpack the stones of yesterday's regrets and tomorrow's fears. The inner landscape of our mind is becoming clearer and more spacious. Now, with this newfound presence, we must turn our attention to the most dynamic, complex, and often most rewarding arena of our lives. The place where our practice is truly put to the test, our relationships with other people. Having cleared the inner landscape of our minds from the shadows of the past and the anxieties of the future, we have cultivated a space of presence. We have built a home within ourselves. Now, we must learn how to open the door of this home and relate to the world of other people with wisdom and compassion. Our relationships with our partners, our families, our friends, Our colleagues are the great laboratory of our spiritual practice. It is here, in the dynamic and often messy dance of human connection, that all our attachments, our fears, our expectations, and our deepest patterns of suffering are brought to the surface. It is easy to be peaceful and loving when meditating alone on a cushion. The real test comes when we are faced with the people who know how to push our buttons, because they are often the ones who installed them. At the heart of nearly all relationship suffering lies a great and tragic confusion. We mistake attachment for love. We are taught in 1,000 subtle and overt ways, through songs and movies and cultural norms, that the intensity of our clinging is a measure of the depth of our love. But from the perspective of wisdom, they are not only different, they are opposing forces. Attachment, or clinging, is rooted in the thirst of tanha. It comes from a place of poverty, from a feeling of inner lack. It is the hungry ego seeking something outside of itself to feel whole. Attachment says, I need you to make me happy. I need you to behave in a certain way to validate my worth. I need you to fill this emptiness inside of me. It is fundamentally transactional. It is focused on what we can get. This is the source of jealousy, possessiveness, manipulation, and the desperate fear of being alone. It is a clenched fist, trying to hold on tightly to another person as if they were a possession. Love, in the truest and deepest sense of the word, is the opposite. It is the expression of metta and karuna. It comes from a place of inner fullness and generosity. It does not seek to get, but to give. Love says, I wish for your happiness, independent of me. I wish for you to be free from suffering. Love is spacious. It honors the freedom and autonomy of the other person. It does not try to control or possess. It is not a transaction. It is a resonance. It is an open hand. There is a beautiful parable that illustrates this difference perfectly. Imagine you find a small, beautiful bird. You are enchanted by it, and you want it to be yours. So you catch it and hold it tightly in your fist. You believe you are protecting it, keeping it safe, possessing its beauty, but in your fear of losing it, your tight grip crushes its delicate bones and suffocates the life out of it. In your desperate attempt to possess the bird, you destroy the very thing you loved. This is attachment. Now imagine you try the opposite. You simply open your hand completely flat. The bird, feeling no safety or invitation, will almost certainly fly away and never return. This is indifference. But there is a middle way. You can hold your hand open, but cupped, you create a space that is safe, warm, and inviting, but not imprisoning. The bird is completely free to fly away at any moment, but precisely because it feels that freedom, that safety, that respect for its nature, it may choose to stay. It may choose to build its nest in your open hand. This is the art of true love, creating a space where another being feels free enough to stay. To practice this is to learn to let go of the three poisons that so often contaminate our connections with others. The first is letting go of our expectations. We all walk around with a secret blueprint in our minds for how other people should be. Our partner should be more romantic. Our parents should be more understanding. Our friends should be more available. We then measure their actual behavior against our ideal blueprint, and we suffer in the gap between the two. We spend our energy trying to renovate other people, to make them fit our plans. This is a recipe for endless frustration for us, and it is a profound act of disrespect toward them. The practice of letting go of expectations is the practice of seeing this blueprint as just a story in our heads. It is using mindfulness to accept and honor the person who is actually in front of us, in all their glorious and frustrating complexity, not the idealized version we wish they were. The second is letting go of the need to be right. The ego loves nothing more than to win an argument, to prove its point. In this battle for righteousness, we turn our relationships into courtrooms or battlefields. We marshal evidence. We point out flaws. We keep a running tally of past wrongs. We may win the argument, but we lose the connection. We sacrifice intimacy for the hollow victory of being right. The practice here is to use our mindfulness to notice the rising of this powerful urge to prove our point. In that moment, we can ask ourselves a simple question. In this moment, what is more important to me, being right or maintaining a loving connection? Sometimes we must stand our ground, but so often we can choose to let go of our position in favor of understanding, of listening, of preserving the peace of our shared heart. The third is letting go of the past. So often in our relationships, we are not responding to the person in front of us right now. We are responding to a ghost. We are responding to the accumulated memory of every past hurt, every broken promise, every disappointment. A simple, thoughtless comment today can trigger the pain of a deep wound from 10 years ago. We are no longer in a conversation. We are in a time machine, fighting old battles. The practice here is to bring all our tools of presence and forgiveness to bear. It is to see the past stories as stories and to meet the person in front of us in this new, fresh, unwritten moment. It is to give them and ourselves the gift of a clean slate. To do all of this, we need to cultivate skillful means in how we communicate. The Buddha included right speech in the Eightfold Path for a reason. Before we speak, especially in moments of conflict, we can use it as a filter. First, is what I am about to say true? Second, is it kind? Am I saying it to help or to wound? Third, is it beneficial? Will this move us toward connection and understanding, or toward greater conflict? And fourth, is this the right time and place? This simple pause, this moment of mindful consideration, can prevent untold suffering. We can learn to speak from our own experience using I statements. I feel hurt when this happens, which is a statement of fact, instead of accusatory you statements. You always hurt me, which is an attack that invites defensiveness. The other half of skillful communication is deep listening. This means listening with the sole intention of understanding, not with the intention of reloading for our rebuttal. It is giving another person the rare and precious gift of our full, undivided, non-judgmental attention. We listen not just to their words, but to the feelings beneath the words. We listen for their hopes, their fears, their needs. When someone feels truly heard, a space of trust and safety is created where real connection can happen. Ultimately, learning to love without clinging is not about finding the perfect person who will never disappoint us. Such a person does not exist. It is about bringing our own awareness, wisdom, and compassion to the beautiful, imperfect dance of relating. It is the practice of loving with an open hand, offering freedom as the highest expression of our care. As we release our tight grip on others, we liberate not only them, but ourselves. And as we look closely at the source of this clinging, the fear of being alone, the need for validation, The desire to be right, we see that it all points back to that central, powerful structure we call the self, our next great act of letting go. Therefore, must be to turn our loving awareness toward this very sense of me and learn to hold it more lightly, more spaciously, and with far more freedom. We have journeyed through the intricate world of our relationships, learning to love with an open hand, to release our expectations, and to communicate with kindness. In this exploration, we may have noticed a common thread running through all our relational difficulties: the pain of not getting what we want from another, the sting of criticism, the fierce need to be right in an argument, the ache of loneliness. What is the common denominator in all of this? It is the central character in our personal drama, the protagonist of our life story, the sense of me. This is the ego. Our deepest and most subtle attachment is not to any person, object, or outcome, but to the very story of who we think we are. And our next great act of letting go is to turn the light of our awareness onto this powerful, pervasive, and ultimately illusory construction. So what is this ego in the context of this path? The ego is not a solid entity or a thing to be found somewhere in our brain. It is an activity. It is a constant, compulsive storytelling process. It is the mental collage we create by stitching together our memories, our beliefs, our talents, our wounds, our accomplishments, and our failures. It is the identity we build from our social roles. I am a mother. I am a lawyer. I am an artist. It is the self-image we construct from our possessions, our political views, our taste in music. This entire fabrication, this character we call me, is held together by thought. It is a story, and the problem is that we have come to believe we are the story. This constructed self is inherently fragile because it depends almost entirely on external validation for its existence. It is like a hologram that needs a constant projection of energy to maintain its form. The ego is always asking, implicitly or explicitly, do you see me? Do you approve of me? Am I good enough? It builds its sense of worth through comparison, constantly measuring itself against others. Am I smarter than them? Am I more successful? Am I less attractive? This relentless activity of comparing and seeking validation is the source of incalculable suffering. It is a full-time, exhausting job to maintain, promote, and defend this fictional character we have created. Because it is a fragile fiction, the ego feels perpetually under threat. This is why it suffers so much. It suffers because it needs to be right, turning conversations into debates and relationships into battlefields. It suffers because it needs to look good, which creates a paralyzing fear of failure, embarrassment, and being seen as foolish. It suffers because it takes everything personally. A car cutting us off in traffic is not an impersonal event. It is a personal insult to me. A differing opinion is not a different perspective. It is a challenge to the validity of my beliefs. Life, seen through the eyes of the ego, becomes a constant, high-stakes referendum on our personal worth. It is a life of high tension and deep insecurity. The path to freedom from this self-created prison is not to wage war on the ego, not to try and destroy it through force. This would only strengthen its defenses. The path is to do what we have been learning to do all along, to observe it with mindful, non-judgmental awareness. We learn to watch the ego's strategies as they play out in real time, When you feel that flush of defensive anger rising in a disagreement, you can learn to step back and note, there is the ego defending its position. When you feel that familiar pang of jealousy seeing a friend's success, you can note, there is the ego engaging in comparison. When you feel a wave of pride after receiving a compliment, you can note, there is the ego feeling inflated by validation. By seeing these patterns as impersonal mental events, rather than as the core of who we are, they begin to lose their power. You realize that the need to be right is not you, it is just a conditioned habit of mind. The tendency toward envy is not you, it is just a program running in the background. This practice of disidentification is the gentle, systematic dismantling of the egoic structure. We are not killing the narrator. We are simply realizing we are the consciousness that is listening to the story, not the character in the story itself. There is a classic Zen story that perfectly illustrates the nature of the ego and the necessity of letting it go. A renowned and learned scholar who had written many books on the philosophy of Zen traveled a great distance to visit a reclusive old Zen master. Upon being welcomed into the master's simple hut, the scholar immediately began to demonstrate his profound knowledge. He spoke at length about the nature of emptiness, quoted ancient texts, and explained the most subtle points of doctrine. The old master listened patiently, nodding quietly. After some time, the master said, "You must be thirsty from your long journey. Let us have some tea." He took out 2 cups and a teapot. He began to pour tea into the scholar's cup. He filled it right to the brim. And then, he just kept pouring. Hot tea spilled over the rim of the cup, onto the saucer, and began to pool on the table. The scholar, watching this in horror, finally cried out, "Stop, stop, what are you doing? The cup is full, it cannot hold another drop." The Zen master stopped pouring, looked the scholar directly in the eyes, and said calmly, "Like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup? That full cup is the ego. It is the identity built on knowledge, on being an expert, on being someone who knows." The scholar was so identified with his intellectual understanding that there was no room for a direct, fresh experience. Letting go of the ego is the practice of emptying our cup. It is the willingness to let go of our fixed ideas about who we are, what we know, and how things should be, so that we can be open to the richness of life as it actually is. Moment by moment, 2 of the most powerful practices for emptying our cup are humility and gratitude. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It is thinking of yourself less. It is the realistic recognition that we are not self-made islands, but deeply interconnected parts of a vast, mysterious web of life. Our talents, our successes, even our very next breath, are dependent on countless causes and conditions that are far beyond our control. Seeing this interdependence naturally softens the ego's arrogant sense of self-importance. Gratitude is the practice of shifting our attention from the ego's favorite complaint, what's missing, to the simple appreciation of what is present. By taking time each day to be grateful for the simple gifts of our existence, the food we eat, the air we breathe, the kindness of a stranger, the beauty of a sunset, we cultivate a sense of inner fullness that directly contradicts the ego's story of perpetual lack. Letting go of the ego is not a process of becoming a nobody. In fact, it is the process of becoming an everybody. It is the dissolution of the imaginary walls that separate me from you, and the realization of our profound connection to all of life. It is the deep peace that comes when we no longer have to spend our precious energy on the exhausting project of being special, when the ego's need for constant validation and defense is allowed to relax. The heart's natural state of openness, compassion, and fearless engagement with the world can finally shine through. But there is one emotion in particular that is the ego's primary guard dog, its fiercest line of defense when it feels threatened. It is the explosive, fiery, and often destructive energy of anger. To continue our journey of unraveling the self, we must now learn how to skillfully and compassionately work with this intense fire whenever it arises. We have explored the intricate construction of the ego, that fragile sense of me that we spend our lives defending. Now we must turn to face its most loyal and ferocious guard dog, the powerful, fiery, and often destructive energy of anger. When our ego feels threatened, when our sense of self is insulted, when our view of justice is violated, anger is the first responder. It is a bolt of lightning, a rushing fire that promises a strange kind of power and clarity in the face of hurt or confusion. It can feel intensely clarifying, righteous, and energizing, and yet, we know its destructive wake. Anger shatters relationships, clouds our judgment, and poisons our own hearts, leaving us exhausted and isolated in its aftermath. For centuries, we have been taught to deal with this fire in one of two unskillful ways. Either we suppress it, pretending it isn't there, or we express it, venting it freely in the belief that we are releasing its pressure. Both paths, however, lead to more suffering. The path of wisdom offers a third way, not to suppress or to express, but to skillfully and compassionately transform the fire itself. To begin this alchemy of the heart, we must first understand the true nature of anger. Anger is rarely a primary emotion. More often, it is a protective shield, a hard and spiky outer shell that we create to cover up a softer, more vulnerable core. Anger is the tip of the iceberg that is visible above the water, but beneath the surface lies the much larger, hidden mass of other feelings. What lies beneath our anger? Very often, it is hurt. It is the raw pain of having our feelings disregarded or our trust betrayed. Sometimes, it is fear, fear of losing control, fear of being harmed, fear of being seen as weak, and sometimes, it is a profound sense of powerlessness or injustice. These underlying feelings, hurt, fear, helplessness, are incredibly vulnerable. They are painful to feel, and so the ego, in a misguided act of self-protection, quickly generates the hot, powerful, and energizing emotion of anger to mask them. Anger feels strong, hurt feels weak. The ego would always rather feel strong. To work with anger, then, is not to work with the visible flame, but to have the courage to look at the vulnerable wound that the flame is trying to protect. The two conventional ways of dealing with this fire are both flawed. The path of suppression involves pushing the anger down, swallowing it, denying its existence, but the energy does not disappear. It turns inward, corroding our own well-being. Suppressed anger can manifest as depression, chronic anxiety, or a host of physical ailments. It is like capping a volcano. The pressure builds and builds until it eventually erupts, often at an inappropriate time, and with a force that is disproportionate to the current situation. The other path, that of unrestrained expression or venting, is equally problematic. We have been told that it is healthy to let it all out. While a momentary release might feel good, study after study has shown that rehearsing angry thoughts and engaging in angry behaviors actually strengthens the neural pathways of anger. The more you practice being angry, the better you get at it. You are watering the very seeds you wish to uproot. The middle way, the path of transformation, begins with the tool of mindfulness. The first step, when you feel the heat of anger beginning to rise, is simply to recognize it. You can say to yourself, silently and without judgment, anger is here. This simple acknowledgement is a moment of profound power. In that moment, you have shifted from being completely possessed by the anger to being the awareness that is noticing the anger. You have created a sliver of space. The second step is to immediately bring your attention out of the story in your head, the loop of blame, justification, and indignation, and into the direct, physical sensations of anger in your body. Where do you feel this fire? Feel the heat flushing your face. Feel the tightness in your chest and shoulders. Feel the clenching in your jaw and your fists. Feel the churning energy in your stomach. Just be with these raw, physical sensations. Breathe with them. This is the act of containing the energy, of holding it in the safe container of your mindful awareness, rather than letting it explode into harmful words or actions. Once you are grounded in the body, and the initial, overwhelming force of the anger has a little space around it, you can move to the third step, investigating with kindness. This is where we bring in compassion. With a genuine intention of understanding, you can gently ask your own heart, what is this anger protecting? What is the pain underneath this fire? You are not analyzing or judging. You are listening. With the gentle curiosity you would offer a crying child. To the more vulnerable part of yourself, is it the pain of feeling disrespected? Is it the fear of being abandoned? Is it the ache of feeling unheard? Once you have touched this underlying hurt, you can perform the fourth step, tend to the wound. You offer the medicine of self-compassion directly to that primary pain. You offer kindness to the part of you that feels hurt, scared, or wronged. You are no longer feeding the secondary fire of anger. You are soothing the primary wound that caused it. The great meditation master Thich Nhat Hanh offered a beautiful and powerful analogy for this entire process. He taught that our anger is like a small baby, crying loudly. When a baby cries, an unskillful parent might try to ignore it, or might yell at it to be quiet, which of course only makes the baby cry more. This is suppression or expression. A skillful and loving parent, however, hears the baby's cry and immediately stops what they are doing. The first action is to go to the baby, pick it up, and hold it gently and securely in their arms. This is the act of mindfulness. When anger arises, we stop and we pick it up with our awareness. We embrace it. We can even say to it, "Hello, my little anger. I am here for you. I will take care of you." We are not fighting it. We are holding it. The second action of the loving parent is to look deeply into the baby to understand why it is crying. Is it hungry? Is its diaper wet? Is it frightened by a loud noise? The parent soothes the baby while looking for the cause of its distress. This is the act of compassion. After embracing our anger with mindfulness, we look deeply into it with the eyes of compassion to see the underlying pain, the unmet need that is causing it to cry out. When we can offer our understanding and kindness to that root cause, the anger, feeling heard and cared for, will naturally begin to quiet down. We are not destroying our anger. We are transforming it with the tenderness of a loving parent. This practice changes our entire relationship with this powerful emotion. Anger is no longer an enemy to be vanquished. It becomes an intelligent messenger, a loyal but sometimes overzealous friend who is trying to signal to us that a deeper part of us is in pain. When we learn to greet this fiery messenger with mindfulness and listen to its message with compassion, we turn a potent poison into a powerful medicine. We become alchemists of our own heart. When we can learn to work so skillfully with even our most intense and challenging inner states, we come to a profound realization. We do not need to be sitting on a special cushion in a quiet room to do this work. Every moment of our day, every interaction, every challenge, every feeling is an opportunity to practice. Our next step, then, is to learn how to weave this thread of awareness into the very fabric of our ordinary, daily lives. We have journeyed deep into the landscape of the mind and heart. We have learned to sit with ourselves, to watch our thoughts, to feel our feelings, and even to transform the powerful, fiery energy of anger into a source of wisdom and compassion. In doing so, we have proven to ourselves that our practice is not about escaping from the difficulties of life, but about learning to meet them with a new level of skill, presence, and grace. The formal practice of sitting meditation is our training ground. It is the gymnasium where we go to strengthen the muscle of awareness. But a muscle that is only ever used in the gym is of little use in the world. The ultimate purpose of our practice is not to become a good meditator. It is to become a more awake, amore compassionate, and a more free human being in every moment of our lives. The next step, then, is to dissolve the boundary between our formal practice and our daily life. It is to learn how to take mindfulness off the cushion and weave it into the very fabric of our existence. We often fall into the trap of thinking that our real practice is the 20 or 30 minutes we spend sitting in silence in the morning, and the rest of the day is just life. But the truth is, every moment is an opportunity to be mindful. Every single activity, no matter how mundane or routine, can become a profound meditation if we bring our full attention to it. This is the art of informal practice. It is not about adding anything new to your already busy day. It is about changing the quality of attention you bring to what you are already doing. Let us start with one of our most common activities, walking. Most of the time when we walk, we are not really there. We are rushing from point A to point B. Our body on autopilot, while our mind is lost in a flurry of planning, worrying, or rehearsing conversations. Mindful walking is the simple act of returning to your body as you move. You don't have to walk in an exaggerated slow motion as you walk to your car or down a hallway at work. Simply bring your attention to the physical sensations of walking. Feel the sole of your left foot as it makes contact with the ground. Feel the sensation of your weight shifting, the lifting of your right foot, its movement through space, and the feeling of it being placed down again. Just feel the rhythm, the contact, the movement. When your mind wanders, as it will, just gently guide it back to the feeling of your feet on the earth. In this simple way, a stressful commute can become a moment of grounded presence. We can apply this same principle to any routine chore, especially the ones we tend to resent. Consider the act of washing dishes. We often do it with a sense of drudgery, our minds a million miles away, wishing we were doing something else. But this too can be a rich and beautiful meditation. The next time you are at the sink, try to be fully present. Feel the warmth of the water on your hands. Notice the smooth, slippery texture of the soap bubbles. See the light glinting off the clean, wet plate. Hear the sound of the water splashing in the basin. Smell the clean scent of the soap. Instead of being a mindless chore to be rushed through, washing the dishes becomes a full, rich, sensory experience. You are not just washing the dishes, you are fully alive in the moment of washing the dishes. You are turning a source of drudgery into a source of peace. Perhaps one of the most transformative informal practices is mindful eating. In our fast-paced world, we often eat mindlessly, wolfing down our food while watching a screen, driving, or working, barely tasting what we are consuming. Mindful eating is a radical act of slowing down and truly receiving the nourishment that life is offering us. You can practice this with an entire meal, but to learn, it is helpful to start with a single bite of food, perhaps a single raisin. First, just look at the raisin in your palm. Imagine you are an alien from another planet who has never seen such an object before. Notice its colors, its unique, wrinkled texture, the way the light reflects off its surface. Then, feel it between your fingers. Is it soft? Is it sticky? Bring it to your ear. Does it make a sound when you roll it now? Bring it to your nose and inhale its scent. Is it sweet, earthy? After this full exploration with your other senses, slowly bring the raisin to your lips. Notice the intention to eat. Place it in your mouth, but don't chew yet. Just feel its presence on your tongue. Then, take one conscious bite. Notice the explosion of flavor that is released. Chew slowly, 30 or 40 times, paying full attention to the changing texture and taste. When you are ready to swallow, feel the sensation of it moving down your throat. Finally, take a moment to reflect with gratitude on everything that had to happen in the universe for you to have this single raisin: the sun, the rain, the soil, the farmer who tended the vine, the person who harvested the grape, the truck driver who brought it to the store. In this simple practice, an ordinary raisin is transformed into a universe of experience, and eating becomes an act of profound connection and gratitude to help us remember to bring this quality of attention into our day. The Zen master, Thich Nhat Hanh, taught the practice of using bells of mindfulness. We can choose any recurring sound or event in our day to be our reminder to return to the present moment. The ringing of a telephone, for instance, instead of it being an urgent demand that immediately triggers stress, we can hear it as a bell. When it rings, we can pause, take one conscious in-breath and out-breath, and then answer the phone with a calmer, more present mind. A red traffic light is no longer a source of frustration. It is a bell of mindfulness, a gift of 30 seconds to stop, feel your hands on the steering wheel, and come back to your body. The sound of a siren, a dog barking, a child laughing. We can train ourselves to hear all of these not as noise, but as invitations to wake up. There is a famous Zen story that encapsulates this entire teaching. A student asks a great Zen master, "Venerable Sir, what did your life consist of before you became enlightened?" The master replied, "Before I was enlightened, I chopped wood and I carried water." The student, hoping for a description of some mystical transformation, then asked, "And what is your life like now?" After you have attained enlightenment, the master smiled and replied, "Now that I am enlightened, I chop wood and I carry water." The meaning of this story is profound. The outer circumstances of our lives may not change. We still have to go to work, pay our bills, and wash our dishes. The transformation of this path is not about escaping to a different life, but about inhabiting the life we have with a completely different quality of attention. Before our practice, we chop wood while worrying about tomorrow's meal. We carry water while ruminating on yesterday's argument. Our bodies are here, but our minds are lost. After we have tasted awakening, when we chop wood, we just chop wood. Our mind is one with the axe, the wood, the feeling of the swing, the sound of the crack. When we carry water, we just carry water. Our mind is one with the feeling of the heavy bucket, the coolness of the water, the path beneath our feet. The sacred is not found in some other, more spiritual place. The sacred is found by bringing our full, loving, undivided attention to the ordinary. This is the ultimate integration of our practice. And as we learn to live more and more of our moments in this state of mindful presence, a final, profound shift begins to occur in our very understanding of what it means to be happy and what it means to be free. We have walked a long and transformative path together. We have learned to bring the light of mindfulness into every corner of our lives. From the silence of our seated meditation to the simple acts of washing a dish or drinking a cup of tea, we have seen that any moment, no matter how ordinary, can become a gateway to presence if we meet it with our full awareness. This practice of weaving mindfulness into the fabric of our day raises a final, profound question. What is the ultimate fruit of this path? After we have let go of the past, released our anxiety about the future, softened our grip on our relationships, seen through the illusion of the ego, and transformed our most difficult emotions, what remains? The answer points to a radically different vision of happiness, a different kind of freedom than anything our culture has taught us to seek. Most of us have been conditioned to pursue a model of happiness that is based on acquisition and circumstance. We operate under the assumption that happiness is something out there that must be found, earned, or achieved. This is the logic of happiness because I will be happy because I get the promotion. I will be happy because I find the perfect partner. I will be happy because I can afford the beautiful house. I will be happy because I am on vacation. We spend our lives restlessly chasing after these external conditions, believing that if we can just arrange all the pieces of our life in the correct order, we will finally arrive at a lasting state of contentment. But as we have seen through the lens of impermanence, all conditions are by their nature unstable and fleeting. The promotion brings new pressures. The perfect partner has bad days. The beautiful house requires endless maintenance. The vacation ends. And so, this conditional happiness is always fragile, always precarious, always haunted by the fear of its own demise. The entire journey of letting go leads us to a great reversal of this assumption. It reveals that true, abiding happiness is not something we need to acquire. It is something we must uncover. It is not something to be found in the world outside. It is the natural, default state of a mind that is no longer at war with itself. It is the peace that is already here, buried beneath the accumulated layers of our clinging, or aversion, and our confusion. The work of this path is not a work of construction, of adding more to ourselves. It is a work of deconstruction, of gently removing the burdens that obscure the radiant peace that has been our true nature all along. And here we arrive at the final and most subtle paradox of the path. For much of the journey, we are driven by a wholesome desire, a spiritual striving to become free, to become enlightened, to find this unconditional happiness. But eventually, we see that this very striving, this tense, goal-oriented search, can become the final and most subtle obstacle. The ego, ever clever, I can turn the search for enlightenment into its grandest project. Yet, I am going to become an enlightened person. The search itself becomes another form of grasping, another way of postponing our peace into a hypothetical future. The final act of letting go, then, is to let go of the search itself. It is the profound realization that what we have been searching for is not at the end of the path, but is the path itself. It is not a future destination, but the very awareness that is reading these words, that is feeling this breath, right here, right now. It is like a person who has been wearing their glasses on their forehead and has spent all day frantically tearing their house apart, looking for them. The search itself prevents them from finding what is already there. The moment they stop, relax, and let go of the frantic search, they might feel the familiar object, right where it's always been. The most powerful metaphor for this ultimate reality is the ocean. The surface of the ocean is a place of constant change and activity. On some days, the sun sparkles on gentle, rolling waves. On other days, a terrifying storm rages, with colossal waves, churning currents, and howling winds. This is the surface of our minds and our lives. It is the endless flux of our thoughts, our emotions, our health, our relationships, our worldly successes and failures. We spend most of our lives living on this turbulent surface, celebrating the sunny days and dreading the storms. Our sense of well-being completely dependent on the ever-changing weather. We believe that we are this surface-level turmoil. The practice of this entire path of mindfulness, compassion, and letting go is the practice of learning how to dive. It is the practice of discovering that there is a dimension of our being that is deeper than the surface-level weather. For if you dive down 100 feet, 1,000 feet, beneath the most violent hurricane on the surface, you will find a world of profound stillness. The depths of the ocean are always silent, always calm, always at peace, utterly untouched by the chaos raging above. This deep, silent, peaceful dimension exists within you right now. Your true nature, your core awareness, is like this deep ocean. The storms of life will still happen on the surface. The waves of thought and emotion will still rise and fall. The practice does not stop the storms. The practice teaches you how to access the unshakable peace of your own depths, even while the storm is raging on the surface. This is the nature of true freedom. It is not the attainment of a perfect, problem-free life where the sun is always shining. The storms will come for all of us. That is the first noble truth. True freedom is the inner resilience, the inner peace that allows you to navigate any storm with a calm and open heart. It is the ability to feel the full force of the waves of life without being drowned by them, because you are anchored in the stillness of your own deep being. This is freedom from our reactivity, not freedom from reality. It is the end of the second arrow. It is the peace that comes from no longer fighting with life, This is the beautiful union of wisdom and compassion. The wisdom aspect is the deep seeing that allows us to understand the nature of the waves. We see their impermanence. We see that they are not personal, and so we don't take them so seriously. The compassion aspect is the quality of heart that allows us to meet these waves with softness and acceptance, rather than with fearful resistance, seeing clearly and loving fully. This is the integrated expression of a liberated human being. This unconditional happiness, this peace of the deep ocean, is not a prize to be won at the end of a long struggle. It is our home. It is the fundamental ground of our being. It is the natural radiance of a mind that has finally and gracefully set down its heavy burdens. This entire journey, from recognizing our suffering to understanding its cause, from cultivating the tools of mindfulness and compassion to letting go of our past, our future, and our very self, has been a journey back to the home we never truly left. It has been a journey of remembering the profound and unshakable peace that has been waiting for us all along. Right here, in the depths of our own heart, we began this journey together by acknowledging a silent, invisible weight that so many of us carry, a backpack filled with the heavy stones of past regrets, future anxieties, and the endless burdens of a self that feels separate and threatened. We have walked a long and winding path, not to some distant, holy land, but deep into the inner landscape of our own hearts and minds. We looked courageously at the nature of this weight, giving it the name Dukkha, and in doing so, we transformed it from a nameless dread into a recognizable problem. We investigated its source, discovering the clenched fist of craving, the relentless thirst of tanha, as the root of our struggle. And then, we were given the most precious gift, the promise that a path to freedom exists. With the map of the Eightfold Path as our guide, we began to assemble our tools. We cultivated the clear-seeing eye of mindfulness, learning to anchor ourselves in the present moment, to watch our thoughts like clouds, and to ride the waves of our feelings with balance and grace. We then learned to warm our hearts, cultivating the boundless friendliness of metta, the tender response of compassion, the shared delight of sympathetic joy, and the unshakable, mountainous peace of equanimity. Armed with this dual power of a clear mind and a loving heart, we finally turned to face the contents of our backpack. We learned to make peace with the ghosts of our past, to release our anxious grip on the future, to love others with an open hand, and to hold our very sense of self with a lighter, more spacious touch. The ultimate message of this entire journey is simple and profound. Peace is not a destination you arrive at when all your problems are solved. It is not something you will find in a different job, a different relationship, or a different city. Peace is an inside job. It is the inherent stillness of the deep ocean that is always available. Even when the surface of your life is whipped into a storm, letting go is not an act of resignation or loss. It is the ultimate act of empowerment and self-love. With every stone of resentment you set down, with every pebble of anxiety you release, you are not losing a part of yourself. You are reclaiming the boundless energy and vitality that you have been wasting on carrying unnecessary weight. This path does not demand a sudden, heroic act of dropping the entire burden at once. It asks for something far more gentle and sustainable. It asks for you to begin with one small stone, today. That may be the simple act of taking one conscious breath when you feel stressed. It may be the quiet offering of a single phrase of kindness to yourself. when you notice the inner critic. It may be truly tasting one bite of your food, or truly seeing the sky for just a moment. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with this simple step, taken right where you are. The freedom you have been seeking is not in a future state of perfection. It is here, in the quiet, a spacious, and loving awareness that has been patiently waiting for you, right behind the chatter of your mind, all along.